on you. What we done started. Look at what we done started. This the people party.
Peace and love, party people. It's Talib Kweli, the BKMC. I am your host for the People's Party. Welcome to another wonderful edition of the People's Party. And always, and as usual, I have my lovely and talented co-host, Jasmin Leigh. Give it up for Jasmin Leigh in the place to be, party people. What's up, Jasmin? How you been?
I've been great. How have you been?
Good. We've been having a good year so far.
Amazing 2020, baby.
Right. A lot of good guests so far.
Yes.
We're going to continue that streak because this guest is, again, one of the people that we spoke about having a guest on this show when we first started this show. Mm-hmm. The word, a phrase OG, I think is tossed around willy-nilly and tossed around too much these days. You know what I'm saying? We give people that OG classification too quickly. But this man that we have on the show today is a certified West Coast OG, a certified music OG, a certified hip-hop OG. This man has been holding it down, particularly for Irish people. Mm-hmm. He's been holding it down for hip-hop. He's created one of the greatest, not just one of the greatest rap songs of all time, but one of the greatest songs of all time. From records like Top of the Morning to You, What's It Like, Whitey's Revenge, when he had his solo career, working with legends like Ice-T, Be Real, all the way to Carlos Santana, starting groups like La Coka Nostra. This man is an incredible lyricist. He's a Grammy Award winner. He's written TV theme songs. I mean, what do he don't do? You know what I'm saying? This man is an icon. He's a legend. I want you to give it up for the one, the only, Everlast is in the place to be on the People's Party.
Yeah!
Yes.
Jump around.
Yes. Damn, that was a long list.
You've had a long storied career, brother. Did you know that you had such a storied career?
I know I've done a lot of stuff, but I just kind of live in the moment.
Right. You're in it.
So you see the list. It gets kind of cool.
Yeah, man. It's
Part
great
of getting
for me
old, I guess. You get to see the list.
Right. I mean, I first saw you when I was in high school, watching Ralph McDaniel's Video Music Box.
For sure.
You had a video. It wasn't your first video, but it was the first video I saw.
I think it was the first video off my first album.
The
my
Forever
first video
Everlasting
was off of Ice-T's compilation with the Rhyme Syndicate coming through.
Okay, shout out to Ice-T and the whole Rhyme Syndicate.
Big
you was a
shout out.
Syndicate soldier.
I was Syndicate soldier.
You was soldiering heavy.
You know, I was shitting on Tipper Gore.
Yeah, you was like front line.
Little did I know she was helping us out with the sticker, but at the time it seemed like
You get more record sales.
Yeah, it wound up that way.
The first song on that album is Syndicate Soldier, right?
I believe so.
And you came out in an era where hip hop was about like having one phrase as the hook. So the hook would be like, yeah, I'm a Syndicate soldier. And that's the hook.
You could get away with that.
That's
yeah,
it.
Yeah.
Or the hook is I got the knack and that's it.
Yeah.
There's nothing else you need to say. Because it's about the beats and the rhymes,
Because
right?
all the one-liners hadn't been used up yet. That's really what it was.
Right. I wanted to start with that because your career is storied. You started out, you came into the collective consciousness as this hip hop artist, but you, at some point in your career, transferred into like doing bluesy and country music, rock music, Americana music. But I didn't hear you, I read in the LA Weekly, you said, everything I do is hip hop. I don't care if it's a country ballad, if I'm doing it, it's hip hop. Speak to that.
Well, I always looked at it like the way I write lyrics has never changed. Mm-hmm. Like it's the same. You can write a little less. You don't have to. You don't have to be as dense lyrically, because you can make up for, if you can carry any kind of melody or harmony, that can make up for some movement. Because that's really what the density of the wordplay is about, movement.
Right.
But I always considered hip hop was the first music that spoke to me. Like some of the cats right before me, it was punk rock. You know what I mean? Hip hop was my punk rock. Mm-hmm. I was the only white kid that kids would look at me like, what the fuck what is in your shoes? What is that?
Right.
It was because I was putting elastic in my shoes like the Breakers. You know what I mean? Like that back then. Nobody in California, that was unheard of. So as I became more into hip hop and especially started making music, it's all about digging through music and records at that time. It was all sampling. It was completely about finding loops and beats and chopping them.
Right.
So you wind up hearing a lot of music. And I've always equated that hip hop was really the taking of everything in the junkyard and making something beautiful out of it. And what I feel I've done once I started going in the other direction, sort of musically, was I was now taking pieces of hip hop and bringing. If you listen to every song I do, there's a hidden clue in there. There's something in there.
Yeah,
there is something that'll be like, whoa, that's a little kind of reminiscent of a melody from this hip hop song,
right?
Or I purposely do it.
Like, I heard a record, I think on one of these later Whitey Ford records, where you referencing the Rakim melody joint in there, it just came in for a second. Do 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 do. I heard it. I'm like, okay,
we changed the note slightly, but
there
like,
it is.
Yeah. I mean, but it's there.
Yeah,
it's there. Yeah, I'm not. That's what I'm saying. Within everything, it's not always a melodic note. It could be a snare.
Right.
You know what I mean? It could be, a simple scratch.
When you did Folsom Prison over like what sounded like Muggs production.
Yeah, we did Folsom Prison over Insane in the Membrane.
Yeah,
that's what we did. So
beautiful.
Yeah, it's just I feel like I'm an ambassador in the rest of music for hip hop. That's what I mean when I say everything I do is hip hop to me.
Right.
Everything I do when I'm in the studio, even if it's a ballad, if it's making me, that's hip hop right there. The head nod. As Skills used to say, the head nod.
The nod factor.
Yeah, the nod factor.
Right.
Thank you.
Skills was on Ruckus. Jared Meyer over there started Ruckus, but that record was before Ruckus, right? Yeah. That was his first deal.
Yeah. That was like when he was like starting to pop really fresh.
This artist, Post Malone, is out now. He's annoying to me, and I'll tell you why. Me personally. It's just me personally.
Well, damn. I'm
going to tell you why he's annoying to me, because I really like his songs.
Right.
And I get mad at myself.
Okay.
But this is why I get mad. Especially the Spider-Man one he got with Sway Lee. Mm-hmm. Oh, that's the shit.
They got an ear for melodies.
Those melodies are so ill.
I don't know if it's them or whoever's running it through the board that knows how to play the melodies, but somebody's got an ear for the melodies. Right.
But I feel like I shouldn't be liking his music, because I read an interview in GQ where he was trying, this was a couple years ago, I don't know if he's changed his mind since then, but he's trying to distance himself from hip hop. Now, when I hear Post Malone's music, it's clearly hip hop, it's trap, but it's that's hip hop that he's doing. Right. He's taking, so when I read that, I'm like, here's a white kid who's being hugely successful. Like, I think right now he's the most streamed artist more than anybody, right?
I think the biggest artist.
He's huge. Yeah. And he's clearly taking hip hop vibe, style, look. But he in that interview, he was like, don't call me hip hop. And I'm like, that's whack.
Well, I'm not in his shoes, so I can't speak to his thinking, but I would agree, like, in the sense that, like, no, you have to acknowance the fact that, first of all, you came in the door calling yourself White Iverson, so.
Right.
I mean,
that was the first record,
Iverson is hip hop. I mean, just to think of Allen Iverson, anything about him is either basketball or hip hop or both. So, that's funny style, but, like, it's this new age, man. Right. It's this new human that exists. You know what I mean? There's
new human.
I'm serious, dude. Like, this me and Divine Styler is like, that's, we talk all the time.
Man, shout out to Divine Styler.
That's my dude, man. That's my brother to this day. Like,
he's such an underrated MC.
He's
an artist.
He's the father of a lot of cat styles.
Yeah, scheme team style.
Yeah. Well, we talk about this new human. This there's that like the truth don't matter and things like that. There's a whole new world that didn't exist when I was young. You know, it's just kind of weird. I'm just kind of taking the whole George Carlin like approach to it, where it's like I got a front row seat to the freak show. I'm just gonna watch.
That's a good approach.
Happens, you know,
Carlin is a good blueprint.
I got enough to worry about at the house. You know what I mean? I'm gonna come out here. I'm just gonna watch the freak show.
Word up.
But that being said, I like his songs too.
Yeah, they're so good.
So I could say the same about Drake. Like, I'm not necessarily a fan of Drake, the persona, but his music's pretty good. You know what I mean? There's a lot of the songs.
I fucking love Drake from Degrassi days. You can't
I don't even know that.
Drake.
I'm just saying, and I'm not hating. What I'm saying is I'm not. There's nothing like that. I'm like Drake, but like I hear a Drake song and I'm like, yeah. If I hear it enough, I'm singing the words.
Right.
You know what I mean? So
he's very good at them songs.
If you make them annoying, people will sing them. Do you think that because Post Malone, it's the truth, if they're the most annoying, the more you sing them. Do you think that because Post Malone doesn't consider himself a part of hip hop, that's like a form of appropriation?
You'd kind of have to. I mean, if he's really trying to do, I mean, again, I can't speak to his thinking in a moment. I remember when I first stepped away and did Whitey Ford Sings the Blues, I didn't do Jump Around. And when I did do it, because like a contract would say I have to do it, I would do this wild circus, just Primus mix, like something that it can't be. The lyrics were the only thing you could recognize.
Right.
About it, you know what I mean? Because there was a period of time where I wanted, you got to understand when I came in the door, other than the Rhyme Syndicate or once House of Pain hit, our first single was a shadow.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's why if you look at the first House of Pain album and the second House of Pain album, it's so dark, the second one, because it was just like, we're not even going to try to do that.
It reminds me of Miss Hill, you know, because she had some legal issues with the music. And when she spent a lot of years performing her own sort of stage versions of her songs instead of performing how people wanted to hear them performed.
That was when she did like the Unplugged thing, right?
Yeah, even after that, like when she came, after she did that, when she started touring again, she had an IRS thing, and then she got over that. She started touring again, but she would do like, you ever see the 70s concerts where people would do medleys of their records?
For sure.
And she was doing that. She was doing like
I think
Stevie
I saw
Wonder.
a show where she did that.
Yeah, because she was like,
Because honestly, I mean, Lauryn Hill could do no wrong to me, except showing up 3 hours late. Then I gotta go.
You gotta go.
I can't. That's the only thing I can't take.
Right,
is
you get your money
contempt
back
for your
from
audience
the venue.
Because that shows contempt for your audience a little bit. And like, you know, I've been in a few audiences that artists have shown contempt. I can't stick around. Other than that, she could do no wrong.
Yeah, I feel that. You were born in Long Island.
Crib.
Yes.
Your father was in construction.
Yes.
I feel like you have a working class swag.
That's all I came from. I mean, I still like, don't get me wrong, I do very well. I live a beautiful life, but I'm on this.
Yeah, I read about you selling your house in the newspaper.
Yeah, that was some shady shit. Some real estate agents were like, you know, cause that was just weird. Whatever. Yeah. But at least I was gone by the time that was reported, right? You know what I mean? Right. You were going. There's no longer your house. I lost my train of thought once you brought that. I would say like even like when I'm around rich folks, like I still feel like I'm going to work tomorrow. You know what I mean? Like I run around some really rich folks sometimes, and it's just like I never feel like part of their club. So I'm a working class dude who just happened to make it good. That's how I look at it, you know?
Right.
My father moved to California from New York because of the construction boom in the 70s, you know?
Wow.
The whole San Fernando, Simi valleys and what's it out there? Palmdale and like where Magic Mountain and all that is. And none of that existed in the 70s.
Now, remember I said, we've been talking for a minute trying to get you on the show, but I said now is the right time. Because I think we had to have some OGs on the show so I can know how to properly do it. Before I had you on the show, we had Ice Cube on the show, and you famously went to high school at Taft.
We shared a high school. We didn't really hang out or nothing, but like, yeah, he was known. It was like that's the dude who wrote Boys in the Hood. Like when Boys in the Hood was on the radio, it was like I remember him running around in a like at the time it was a hot thing was the Hawaiian suit, the shorts and the shirt and like
short set,
the Chinese flip flops.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like that was the move. Like it was the swap meet fit, but it was the move. Like it was like fly. But I remember that's the kind of shit I remember. But yeah, him being the rap guy. At that time, I wasn't even about music. I was fully immersed in graffiti because Divine Styler was going there also. And like he was sent out from Brooklyn because he got in some trouble or something one summer and wound up going to school there for a little while. So I met him through another friend and then we just connected. But I was fully immersed in graffiti.
I didn't know Divine Styler went to Taft too. I remember when that Ain't Saying
Briefly.
Okay, when that Ain't Saying Nothing video dropped, Scheme Team, I was in New York running with a crew of dancers. So we didn't understand that dance culture and just even the way he was rhyming over that you know, the James Brown sample, the way he was doing it. From the East Coast, all we knew from LA was NWA vibe, Compton's Most Wanted vibe, King T vibe. And so Divine Styler just split my wig. Talk to me about your relationship with him and what he means to hip hop in Los Angeles.
I mean, not just Los Angeles. I mean, he was always an East Coast cat. His style, and you know, it was reminiscent of everything that was going on in New York. I think he fathered a lot of cat styles. There was no hippie movement looking cats like before the Scheme Team. You know what I mean?
No Far Side, Freestyle Fellowship.
Them two. I'm saying it was both New York and L.A. You know what I mean? But to me, like I said, I was hanging with Divine because he's also an amazing visual artist. Like he was an amazing graffiti style writer.
Right. That Scheme Team logo was like some graffiti shit, right?
Yeah, I think he did everything. He did a lot of the beats that, you know, even though like he shared credit with people, I watched it. You know, I saw a lot of it happen. But like lyrically, he was the illest cat, I think, one of the illest cats ever. You know what I mean? I don't just say that because I consider myself, and back then, I consider myself son of Divine Styler.
That's
you know what I mean? That's because we come from an era where it's not a shitty thing to say. You know what
I mean?
It's
You
like,
got sons now. Like when we had Evidence on the show, I asked him where he got his name from. He said, I wanted a name like Everlast.
Yeah, he'd only told me that like 2 years ago. I was like, what? He was like, yeah, man. It's like the first rap I ever said was Syndicate Soldier, he told me. Like at a talent show or something. I don't know exactly where. But I was like, are you kidding me? He was like, nah, I'm dead
We need
serious.
to get Divine Style on here, man.
That's probably easy to do.
Yeah.
He manages my studio, lives in my studio. Like it's a house. It's like a big.
Okay, word up.
But he's available.
Now, you joined Ice-T's collective, the Rhyme Syndicate.
Yes.
That seemed like a power move. That was through Divine Styler.
I used to fucking bust raps, like writing graffiti with these cats, like to make fun of your mom or something. You know what I mean? Like they were serious. I was like hanging out and so much, and they were doing the graffiti and the music, and so I again like started like, oh, they were always rapping. So and snapping was a big deal between us back then. So like I would snap on them, but rhyming, and then like one day Divine was like, "You should write a rhyme, dude." And I would have like a song, friend. And he was like, "Yeah, like a song." And literally, the first song that I ever wrote in my life. This is what do they say nowadays? No cap.
Oh God!
Right? No fucking lies. Is Syndication, the first song that got put out. Like I wrote the verses. Like I was supposed to have a partner too, who flaked out. It was supposed to me and this other dude were supposed to like team up and like be a group. And he got scared of the demo process or something.
Wow. People sometimes get scared of success.
It wasn't even about, nobody was making money making rap. This is 88, dog. If you maybe the Fat Boys, LL Cool J,
and
Run
really
DMC.
Ice-T was just starting, right?
Ice was making some bread. He was starting to bubble, like make money. Like he was starting to be a star kind of dude. Like,
who was the original Rhyme Syndicate crew?
Well, that would be for Ice-T to answer because like there's a whole crew of dudes
there was a lot of
that weren't even rappers. I mean, he had all his old past buddies from school and whatever gang affiliations and whatnot. But as far as musically, other than what was signed to it, as far as I know, was everything on that compilation. And 783 was affiliated for a little while, but they never really finished the deal, and they went and got their own album deal.
783, right? Which
was Muggs. That's how me and Muggs first became familiar with each other.
That's where I was going with it, because it was interesting. Because that Rhyme Syndicate era, like I said to you earlier, like you were the first person I ever seen with a suit and sneakers on.
They couldn't get me in the shoes. I just couldn't do it.
G-Eazy is now doing that style.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying. But you was first with it. What made you make the conscious decision? Because when I listened to Forever Everlasting, you refer to yourself as Caucasian a couple of times on that record.
Yeah.
And then you have these rhymes about that album.
I might even say grafted white devil on that record.
Yeah, because you have the kid rapping about the 5% kid.
I had all the Ansar books.
All that shit is on that record.
All the 40 Deuce Ansar books and it's the 5% math stuff.
Right. You had some. You was dropping some science. You said that on that. You said on this song.
I'm not dropping science, but I was making cats aware that I was aware of what they were referring to as science.
But then you made a conscious decision to move away from the grafted white devil and whiteness as an identity to Irish as an identity with House of Pain and going from Rhyme Syndicate to Soul Assassins. Like, walk me through that.
Well, to walk you through that, I'd have to tell you an adventurous story.
Oh, well, that's what
we're here. Let's do it.
When things came to a head at Rhyme Syndicate, when I started learning about what was actually going on, which wasn't anything super nefarious or anything, but like budgets and all this and how they got spent and how little I had to say in it. I had sold like 125,000 records at a certain point, and I'd only been advanced around 60 grand. I'm gonna keep this like real simple though. So in the math I did, I figured they owed me a couple bucks. Like by the math, I was like maybe 10 grand they might owe me in royalties. And I went to inquire about when I would be due these royalties because I still didn't really know the ins and outs. And when I showed up, they didn't answer me for a long time, the label. And then I went and got involved in something and found out they had done some crazy remix of a song that never got released because it was such garbage. But they paid a guy like 100 grand for it.
Wow.
And I was like, who the fuck is this guy? And it turned out to be Shep Pettibone, who was big in the 80s, right?
Right, Madonna Records.
Yeah. I was like, well, who the fuck is he? You know what I mean? I was
Shep
like,
Pettibone
I didn't, you know, so I got really upset that this guy paid and it put me underwater. I wasn't, at 17, 10 grand would have kept me alive for a year.
Right.
You know what I mean? Easily. So I got really upset, and the boss of Warner Black Music at the time, which is where I was like this anomaly in the middle of Warner Black Music, was Benny Medina, and I flipped
of course.
fuck out on dude at 18. Like,
Sometimes
flipped out, like not care. I didn't care. Again, this was never originally supposed to be my future. Like I never planned to be doing this for this long. Somebody said make a rap record. I was like, okay. They said, you want to make an album? I said, okay. And then I started figuring out the business of it and all that. So they didn't like the way I flipped out. They dropped me from Warner Brothers.
Okay.
And then I was still in the Rhyme Syndicate contract, and I found out like that my record was popping in New York. Syndication was popping, and they weren't. I was managed by Ice-T's manager. You know what I mean? My lawyer was Ice-T's lawyer. This is those days. Like I was young. I didn't know, and so like when I started asking questions and I got my own lawyer, you know, I was upset. Not that they had done me wrong, but it's like I could have played at the Latin Quarter. I could have done a show at the Latin Quarter. And anybody who don't know it is probably like, what does that mean? Right. To me, that would have been the fucking end all be all. The Union Square or the Latin Quarter to be able to say, yeah, I rock that. That's Valhalla. I rock that spot. Yeah. You know what I mean? So those kind of things started eating away at me. And I had a lawyer who found a way out of the contract, and I got out. And that's when I had already known Danny a little bit. Lethal was DJing for me. He was 15, a high school dropout. Like he used to rob houses, like with a little Russian crew of kids, little crew of Russian kids. Like they used to rob places, but he could beatbox like a monster. Right. So the chick I was dating somehow knew about this kid, and I met him and I loved him. He couldn't DJ a lick when I met him. Okay. He could, but he beatboxed his ass off and he had a style about him. And I was like, oh, I like this kid. Right. I took him around the world at like fucking, he was 15. Right. So he was with me already. Danny was a friend. We were hanging out in his house one day. I remember I said earlier, some guys, it was punk rock. Danny was a big punk rock guy. Right. We're hanging out at his house one day, and he has this tape, you know, the tape racks, remember? And all these bands I know. And then I see one that says House of Pain. I was like, what the fuck is that? I've never heard of them. He was like, oh, dude, it's some terrible punk rock thing I was trying to do. It was my band. It was his shit. Yeah. And I was like, we should use that. Because it connected with me really deeply, because one of the most, there's a couple impactful movies for me when I was young. One was End All Be All was Apocalypse Now, but another one was The Ireland of Dr. Moreau. Okay. Where like that, I saw that, I don't know how old I was, but that movie kind of fucked me up for a long time. Right, not the remake. No, the original one. Yeah. The original one. That's why all the soundtrack is on there from the album. Okay. Like, there's all stuff from that movie. He breaks the law, goes back. That's all from that movie. Okay. So that connected with me. And the reason Danny tried to call it that was because there was an Oingo Boingo song called No Spill Blood, which is based on the movie. Oh, okay. So it was like, we got to use this. Right. Plus, I couldn't submit demos anywhere under the name Everlast because Benny Medina had X'd that out. Right. Right. Like any label. Like it was like I was written up as like Trouble. Yeah. I wasn't going to get any. And that's a very small. They compete against each other, but they hang out. And it was way smaller back then, too. Yeah, way smaller. Yeah. It was like, you know, the old networks, CBS, ABC, you know, NBC. It was the same kind of label situation. There's maybe 5 or 6 majors. So once we started that, and it was originally a live band, House of Pain. It was Everlast and the House of Pain. Okay. And it was a live band, and we were cutting demos. And we were like, we're going to fucking kill everybody with this live shit. That's interesting, because I thought the rock part of it came later after the success. No. It started as that. Yeah. And then it wasn't just rock, though. It was just live music, and it was going to be a band playing with us. And then the MTV Unplugged happened, where they had the band. And, you know, like MC Lyte, I think De La. It was, but a week later, every major tour, all the rappers had bands. So it was like, fuck. Right. And that same week, Lethal seeing a girl who's roommates with a girl that Muggs is seeing, and we all go to some reggae fest and wind up coming back to their crib. All of us hanging out. Is this where you met Be Real? It's the first day I met Be Real. I've heard this story, but I want to hear you tell it. And we're hanging out after the thing, and Muggs pops in a tape, and he's like, check this out. And it's the first Cypress album, probably like 6 months before anybody heard it, you know, maybe 8. And I just remember, it was, to me, it hit me as hard as the first time I heard Funky by Ultra or Rebel Without a Pause, it hit me in the whole fucking album. I was and the production reminded me of Bomb Squad meets Ultra meets SD50s.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it was like whoa, this is crazy. And me and B Real start rapping over beats for a couple hours, smoking weed and all this. They were about to go on the road, and apparently when they left there is when B Real told Muggs, "You got to fuck with that dude." You know, and that's kind of the beginning of that offshoot.
Man, that's beautiful.
I'm a little high. Am I making all sense here?
No, I'm right there. So you promised an adventurous story, and it was full of thrills and chills.
I didn't even tell like the really bad parts of it because
we want to hear the really bad parts.
When I went off at Warner Brothers, it was ugly.
It was
ugly.
It was worse than you just let us.
It was like very nasty things said about people. You know what I mean? None racial or anything, but
I would not have assumed
but
that.
Other horrible things were said
that an 18-year-old would say.
Yes, an angry 18-year-old who came to get a $10,000 check and was told he owes $120,000.
Right.
You went out with the bang. Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, it's a good story.
I mean, it's like Cube had to do the same thing.
It wouldn't be
right?
a good a story if I was like a mechanic somewhere right now.
Right, I went off and that's the end
kind
of
of
the
blew
story.
it all right there, dude.
Now, Muggs ended up producing, this huge record, Jump Around.
Yeah.
Talk to us about making that record. I've heard that B Real and Ice Cube might have passed on that beat.
I heard Ice Cube passed on the beat, but it didn't have the horn in it yet.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't. It was just a ching 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 ching, which is such an impossibly small chopped piece of a record that Muggs is one of the baddest cats ever. But
yeah, man, he's so incredible.
so he started playing it, and he was still living like in a side apartment on his aunt's house, like and like I was out in the driveway because the door of his place opened up, and I'm writing the rhymes on his car. I'm not even writing rhymes, just sitting there out there, fucking concocting rhymes. You know what I mean? And I was heavy into like raga stuff, like Shaba and whatnot.
There's a lot of reggae influence on those House of Pain albums.
Yeah, and then so in one of the rhymes, I just say, "Jump around if you love freedom, jump around if you love culture," and then I move on. Just like this kind of little shout out to whatever. So as we're piecing it together, Muggs is the one who was like, "Hold up," he's like, "Just say jump around." He's like, and then we're gonna say jump, 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 because they had just come off tour with Leaders in the New School, and they didn't have a song doing that, but Leaders in the New School would always get the crowd jumping.
Right.
And he was like, "This will work." He's like, "This is gonna be big."
Right.
And I was like, "Cool, whatever." I just roll with the punches a lot. Just let's
Kris
do
Kross
it.
was out around that time. Hip hop was very jumpy.
No, well, you want to know the Kris Kross story is the reason Joe Nicolo gets shat on at the end of that record, who is the
shit on him at the end.
The label head of Cypress Hill at the time.
We didn't know it was a diss record until we got to the end. It's like, oh, this is a diss record.
Well, because what happened was Ruffhouse wanted to sign us, but they wanted to give us like a ridiculously shitty deal. And even Muzz was like, "Fuck you. I'm not letting them do that." So the next thing you know, I get called into the offices at Tommy Boy. I think all of us were in New York, the whole band. We get called into the conference room. They sit us down. And they're like, "All right, don't panic." And we're like, "What are you talking about?" They're like, "Don't panic." We're like, "Okay." And they play a record.
They play Kris Kross record.
And it's Kris Kross. And I'm like, "What the fuck?"
Right.
And then it's like, "Yeah, we know what happened." And they were like, "Dude heard your record, and he fucking told this group to make a record called Jump."
Wow.
And we were like, "We're fucked. We're over. It's done." And Tommy Boy was like, "Nah, that ain't the narrative." They dropped our record, and that was the thing about Tommy Boy, man. Like our record was already getting played, like in the little DJ circles of New York. You know, they had to.
It was huge in New York,
but they put that nationwide instantly. So what started happening was like, it was obvious these records were made at the same time. Nobody stole it. They stole it from us, but it was obvious we didn't rip off a bunch of little kids.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I don't blame the little kids. It was Joe
their people.
Nicolo. Even Jermaine was a little kid at the time.
Yeah, Jermaine
You know what I mean?
started when he was 15.
Yeah. They were children. They were told, "Make this record," and I was there. I was 17 with a record deal. I never had any bad. You never heard me say "fuck Kris Kross."
Right.
You know what I mean?
Fuck them kids.
Yeah, fuck them kids, man.
Everlast hates the kids.
But what would start happening is we would go into Nels a lot in New York when we were out there back
Nels.
then. And they would start playing that record. The make you jump. And then you'd hear like it would just start happening. We were like a lot. They would start playing the Kris Kross record, and before it got to the rap, they would pull that shit off and they would throw our record
Hey,
on.
bro, that still works now.
And
I'll be DJing, so that still works now.
but we were happy when we heard that. We were like, okay, all right, okay, people are. It's not killing us, you know what I mean?
Right.
And like the cars in the streets, we didn't hear Kris Kross's records bumping them in New York. It was crazy. I mean, that was ill. Those were different times when like cats had like disco-worthy systems in their cars.
Yeah, and like Geo Trackers and Suzuki Samurais.
Crazy.
Playing like, jump around. Did you, when you wrote that record, did you feel like it was going to be as big as it? Because it's probably playing at a wedding or a prom or something right now.
Yeah. Again, no. Did I think it was going to be like Louie Louie? No. I didn't have any clue. We call it the Louie Louie in the 90s.
It's Louie Louie.
Yeah.
It's Ozzy Brothers Shout.
Yeah.
It's all those things.
It's a sports arena record,
Right?
now. Which is crazy. It's crazy. Let's not talk about that guy. Just had to go to that guy.
It's Jock Jams, man.
That's right. Tommy Boy did put that out.
Right, Jock Jams.
What were we just talking about?
Oh, we were talking about.
When I wrote it, did I know it was that big? No, there's no fucking way you could have. Again, hip hop was still bubbling. It wasn't a mainstream music at all yet. It wasn't. It was getting more and more consumable, and more bigger pieces of it were being consumed by the masses. But what I did know is we had cut the record, and it was okay. It was all right. Like I said, then Muggs started playing with scratches, and again, this is the horn on that record is, people try to speculate all the time. Like Prince tried to sue us once and we laughed him out of court. No, God bless the dead. I love Prince, but we like, dude, prove it, because it's not you.
It's not Get Off. Because Questlove is convinced that it's Get Off.
Yeah. No, and I actually hit him on Twitter once for like, why are you, first of all, if you think it's my sample, why are you a sample snitch right now? I was like, that was some corny shit. That was some corny shit with a sample snitch. Like, come on, dude. Like, at least check with, hey, did you clear that? You know?
Right.
But anyways, it came right off of Divine Styler's Ain't Saying Nothing record. It's it's the horn off his. It's not even whatever he took it from. He uses the. He uses there's a little note before it. There's like a little hit, and Muggs just scratch it. But when he dropped that on it the first time, it was like, whoa. That changed the whole record, you know. I imagine it was the same when they put that crazy James Brown ascending horn over the funky drummer beat in the Bomb Squad session. It was like, whoa, that's different.
The Pete Rock remix really, I think, helped y'all in New York as well.
Oh, I think it's one of the best remixes ever.
Whose idea was that?
Well, mine.
Okay.
Tommy was like, we want to remix the record. You got any ideas? And Pete Rock was on fucking fire. He was on fire.
Yeah.
He did the Night Train remix, the Shut 'Em Down remix, a bunch of records. And I was like, Pete Rock. And I remember I hadn't met him yet, but he was working at whichever studio it was, Chungking or whatever other one you got. They were the primary two studios.
It was like Battery or Chungking.
It was one of those.
Right.
I think it was Chungking. And I was like, I'm gonna pop in. I'm paying for the session. That's not out of line, right? It's just me. And I didn't run with it. I was me. I used to run around New York by myself. Right. And so I popped in and I was like, yo. And I listened to it. He played. I was just banging. And I'm sitting there waiting. I'm waiting for Pete Rock to rap. It's over. I'm like, you're not gonna rap? And I remember him looking at me like, you want me to?
Wow.
And I was like,
because he did rap on it.
Fuck yeah, I want you to rap. I'm a guy about voices and shit, and he's one of them dudes that has like a swag voice.
He does, like dip, diver.
It just sounds good.
Yeah.
So he was like, okay, I'm gonna. And I left, and the next day I got to mix and had him on it with the whole blood stains the ground. We jump around.
Yeah, that's an ill Pete Rock verse.
You want to hear a funny story real quick?
Yes, please.
There was a show at Brooklyn Nets Arena, whatever.
Barclays.
Barclays, thank you. And it was like all the old, it was like the kind of a nostalgia hip hop thing, but all good ones. Rakim and Mobb Deep and Meth and Red and House of Pain. We did it. It was like on our 25th anniversary run. We kind of did it. And Pete and CL played. And when I saw Pete, I was like, yo, we should bust into the remix halfway through, and you come out and bust your verse. It's like, all right, cool.
Wow.
So we're doing, and this was like, the sets were only like 15 or 20 minutes each. It's one of those nights. so like we're doing Jump Around, and I'm like, ladies, it comes the third verse is about to start, and I'm like, ladies and gentlemen, blah, blah, blah. And P-Rock's standing right there where them speakers are, right there. He's standing there. I'm looking at him. And I'm like, ladies and gentlemen, one of the greatest remixes ever. I'm going to give it to you right now. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. P-Rock. And we put on the remix, and because the idea was like, you do your verse, and then I'll kick in the third verse, we'll finish the song. Right. And it's dun, dun, and he's standing there looking at me. And he's just like, and I'm like,
he's vibing out to his beat.
I'm like, yo, I didn't say I wasn't gonna. I'm not one for fuss, and I don't like the show to look like it was. I was.
Right.
And after like 8 bars, when I saw he didn't take one step, I just kicked in the third verse.
Wow.
And
I would have been shocked if he knew that verse.
He maybe that's what it was.
Yeah,
but
when you
after the
sound
show,
like
he's
he
like,
knew the
"Oh,
verse?
dude, I'm sorry. I was so high."
Oh, he be high. Yeah, Pete be high. Peak is high. Watches Incredible Hulk. Old Incredible Hulk with Lou Ferrigno. And
I was like, but I was staring. I introduced you.
Right.
I said, ladies and gentlemen, Pete Rock.
He thought it was
He was like, yeah,
out.
Pete Rock is dope. That Pete is dope. Who made that? Oh, I made it. I'm Pete Rock. Oh. You guys shot that video in New York City. Was it on St. Patrick's Day?
Yes.
That was a stroke of genius.
Totally illegal, totally pirate.
Yeah,
Shout
guerrilla
out to
style.
Shady
Guerrilla.
Perez. He directed it, but well, there was like permitted parts. The night version where we're in the bar, the Old Town Tavern, the oldest bar in New York. That was all. Of course, we shut that down and shot that. But all the stuff at the parade, we were just jumping in and out of the parade.
Yeah.
You know, those were the days. I don't go anymore, but New York ain't the same. But back then, if you went one avenue off on either side of the parade, it was fist fight city.
Yeah.
It was just drunk Irish dudes fighting.
Yeah.
And so we knew that. Like we
Irish
were like,
hooligan
just,
shit.
Yeah, just
shenanigans.
Just be out there with cameras.
Right.
We were like, yo, we're
Right.
gonna catch crazy shit.
What was interesting to me was me growing up in New York. We had a contentious relationship, particularly with Irish police officers. And then when you watch the first Godfather movie, they deal with this Irish cop in the Godfather movie.
For sure. Officer O'Malley.
Officer O'Malley, which Cypress Hill and y'all rapped about, and on Pigs. Now, Cypress and Soul Assassins, it was very gangster, anti-cop. House of Pain was an anti-cop group. Was there any friction with pro-cop Irish people when y'all were doing anti-cop music?
No, dude. I'm gonna tell you, in New York, I used to be walking. Like I said, I'd go meet anybody anywhere, just walk there most of the time. I still love to walk New York City. I can't tell you how many times I was walking down the avenue and a police van would pull up and be like, yo, and I'd turn around and be like, well, and I'd be smoking a blunt or something.
Right.
Like,
Oh, wow.
and this was when that wasn't cool. That wasn't cool at all. But I'd turn around and be like, oh, shit, what? And they'd be like, yo, Everlast? And I'd be like, yeah, where are you going? And they'd be like, get in. And they'd
Right.
drive
Oh
me
my
out.
God.
Wow.
It was like, that used to happen all the time.
Wow.
When I got locked up for the gun at JFK, like, they put me in the cell. I had fronts, jewelry, all kinds. I was in the, central booking. And fucking about 3 hours in, they come grab me. Yo, say hello to my son. All right, I'll say hello to your son.
That's some other shit.
Meanwhile, now I'm like even more worried than just having my jewels tucked. I'm like, now I'm gonna get my ass beat for being out here with the cops and being cool and shit.
Right.
They never put me back in though. I ate they brought me sandwiches.
Wow.
I was like, but all night I was like, oh, the minute they put me in, I'm gonna get my ass kicked. You know what I mean? They're gonna be like, oh, okay, yeah.
Because you down with the boys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they kept me out till court time and then just brought me
Wow.
to court and I got bailed. But
So-
it was, cops they knew exactly how I felt, how we talked, I mean, Officer O'Malley, that was the pig's name, but I also that song with Prince Paul on Prince of Thieves. That's
Prince of
the
Thieves,
character
right.
I assumed when he was like, write a dirty cop character. I was
Right.
like, oh, that's easy.
That's a genius album
That's
that gets,
easy. Oh.
that's very slept on.
I still want to I want to fundraise to make it a Broadway
See
show.
it play, right?
Yeah.
What Kendrick did with To Pimp a Butterfly, I feel like the Prince Paul thing was the blueprint for that. Like, because that was like a hip hop opera, and what Prince Paul had already did it with Prince of Thieves. He didn't get his props.
Paul's that was a stroke of genius, and I was mad they never tried. I don't know if they ever tried, but I still think it'd be a great
Right, with
Broadway.
Breeze and Breezy Bruins doing all them.
Yeah, that dude was dope. I used to like that shit, dude. Like
Juggernauts.
again, that was a voice. Yeah, that guy had
Great
that
voice.
Yeah.
Now with the Irish thing, this is what's interesting to me. I don't know if you know this, but I get into a lot of arguments and debates online with people.
Do you?
Yes, I do.
Word?
Yes.
I didn't know.
And so, the alt-right and, is there's a lot of overlap with Nazis and, far-right ethno-nationalists. Right. And there's a book written by these far-right ethno-nationalists. It's a book very popular in Nazi circles called White Cargo. And
I'm not familiar.
It's a book that talks about, the book makes the claim that you had these Irish slaves that were dealing with the same situations that black slaves were dealing with.
Well, I know a little bit about that history, but go ahead.
Yeah, and so, you have these Irish
It wasn't the same, though.
Yeah, you have this indentured servitude. You have these Irish historians. Kevin Cruz, I think, is one of the main ones.
An Irish dude could have worked his way to
That's
being
right.
free of the contract.
Right.
And was probably not beaten severely and starved.
Right.
Or
and it's
any of
still
these
like,
things.
it's still
And his wife probably wasn't raped.
Right.
His
It's still a
children
horrible
probably
history.
weren't put up for sale.
Right. But a lot of people, the reason why the alt-right, and not the alt-right, but these Nazis, these far-right, they try to push this myth of this, like this Irish thing is the same, because they're trying to get people to have white pride. And so I'm somebody who's a pro-black artist, and you've worked with a number of pro-black artists, and I would even venture to say that you're a pro-black artist, right? I feel like you have pro-black.
I wouldn't say I'm anti.
Yeah, you're pro-black.
I mean? If you give me a situation of justice or not justice, I'm going to look toward justice. Hopefully, that's what I'd like to think of myself.
Now, pro-blackness.
Half my family is black, by the way.
Right.
Like I'm all my nephews and nieces. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
It's how I met and started to get to know David Banner.
Right, Banner's such a good dude.
Love Banner.
Pro-blackness has always been like, race is a social construct. Doesn't work in biology, right? We're all human beings, right? The whiteness and the blackness was invented to justify slavery. So what happens is pro-white is always some Nazi KKK shit. Pro-black is always about equality, trying to push back against that shit. But what you did with House of Pain was interesting, is that you took it out of the claiming the white thing and claiming the Irish thing, And I think that's important, I think, for especially white hip hop fans.
Well, because I didn't think about it in these terms back then, by any means, because you didn't have to really. But
right.
like, if
it's a
I
different
framed
time.
it now, I would say white's not a culture.
That's so true.
Irish is a culture.
That's
German
right.
is a culture. Dutch is a culture. English is a culture.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? To just try to make whiteness something is, so is Krondon white? If you're making white, you know what I mean? Like, it's like, he actually did that great group with the White Brothers or something.
The White Boys.
The White Boys.
Yeah.
Right.
Krondon
But if you see where I'm going with that,
Yeah.
like, if you're going to make it strictly about the melanin content, then there's a lot of questionable what's white and what's black.
Right.
I mean, if you're going to talk about culture, that's another thing where it came down to the Irish thing. Danny is responsible for that coming into fruition. Not that he pushed it, but it's like once we found that, I'm Irish German. Mm-hmm. I think 3/4 Irish, 1/4 German. And me and Danny realized the Irish thing was in common, and it was in a time of Public Enemy and pro-black music in that sense, and we were just like trying to be like, all right, well, we have an identity too, and we're gonna present it to you in black music through black music. You know what I mean? We never like shied away. Like I always thought, and shout out to Search, I really got a lot of love for him, but I thought a lot of times he got himself into trouble with folks because he would start saying like claiming the original man. It's like, dude, you don't have to go that far. Just
bad guys wear black.
Yeah, that's not even what I'm talking about. He would go farther than that. Sometimes
he was building
there were
a lot
times
of
where he got the character in the Spike Lee movie.
Right.
There was a few moments where he almost was that guy in real life. You know what I mean? And it's like, the intention in the heart was right and good and all that. I'm saying that might have got you in more trouble than it was worth by just being like, hey, I'm like this and I'm down with this, and I'm going to present it to you in this medium that is black music.
I think it's important to note, I agree with everything you said, that the reason why I agree that whiteness is not a culture and blackness becomes a culture because of the slave trade, because of the disrupting of the family. We don't know where we're from. We don't know where our people's from. So we unite under this black thing. But even I went to see Sam Kuti, who's Fela Kuti's son, perform, and he did this whole speech on stage about how he's claiming African over black. And Fela Kuti, his father, was like, I'm the black president. But now he's just claiming the African culture. And Africa, of course, is not a country. It's a continent. But I like that level of wokeness, from pro-black communities. That's the next evolution. We went from black nationalism to cultural nationalism to now it's like, we own the black thing, but now it's like you have artists like Kendrick and J. Cole who are pro-black artists, but they now out there like, I'm black and I'm black and I'm black. It's more of I'm not your idea of what a black person.
What was that from?
CB4 maybe?
Was it that? I think it was CB4.
Yeah, I'm black.
When they
Chris
broke
Rock.
up and the one guy went solo, right?
Yeah, that was Alan Payne.
Yeah. I'm blackity black.
Yeah, I'm black and I'm black. But even that was kind of making fun of Q-Tip and Jungle Brothers, and them were like, black is black is black is black. It's like we were embracing that.
Schoolie D had one that was kind of in that
Oh yeah,
too.
a black.
Am I black enough for
am I black enough for you?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's gangster shit.
You are probably responsible for a lot of frat brothers with fighting Irish and shamrock tattoos. Who do you feel like is the cool, iconic role model for Irish people today? Is it like Conor McGregor, Macklemore?
Now, before I answered it, is it Macklemore or Macklemore?
It's Macklemore.
That's what I
It's like it's
okay,
French.
That's what. That's what Macklemore. That's how I always say
Macklemore.
it. But then I'll hear
He's the
Macklemore and I'll be
Macklemore.
like, I got no problem with Macklemore, like holding like a piece of that. I've met him. He's a solid dude. He reps
he
the
is
Irish
solid.
well.
He took me on tour, and his last song is an Irish bar song that he reappropriated for hip hop.
I'm so dadded out. I don't.
He comes out.
Recent?
He raps.
You
the
said
flag,
you're what out?
He raps the
Oh,
flag.
live you mean?
Live,
okay,
yeah, live.
okay.
And the whole stadium becomes like
Stadium, by the way. Stadiums.
Yeah, becomes and it's like the orange, green, and red. I mean, orange, green, and white. And me and Big Crit opened for him, and we're just like, what the fuck? What are we doing here?
Shout
go
out
ahead.
to Dante Ross though, because he was trying to sign Macklemore, and I think that the company he was with said no, and he helped him plug his whatever.
Yeah, Dante's a good dude, man. I run into Dante in these streets, like to this day.
Yeah.
I'll be in a club, at a dark club
He's
somewhere.
a Cali man now.
I know he's out here doing his, he's out here. Dante's too hard for Cali.
I think he's settling.
He's mellow.
He got a driver's license. That's when I knew. That's when I knew he was sticking around.
Word up.
You had just asked me something. I'm sorry.
Oh yeah, we were talking about. I interrupted Jasmine's question about who's holding it down.
Oh, Irish. Like you said, Macklemore. Remind me, is there mothers?
Well, I was just giving you examples,
Right.
but who do you think is
I'm
the
just
new
not
icon?
hip to everything that's going on. Who's Irish out there right now?
You use the term "you're dadded out."
Yeah, I'm dad.
Oh, okay.
I'm just
That's funny.
Right, dad vibes.
dad. Except for the fit, I'm dad.
He's dad with drip.
Yeah,
Drip dad.
It's
Yeah, he
fun
doesn't
at my
have the
daughter's
dad cap.
schools because
Dad God.
I'm an alien. Like I look like an alien at my daughter's schools. Like the other dads are like in cargos and Reebok like dad shoes, and
Right.
I'm like
New
dude,
Balances.
I'm like tighten it up, bro.
Like it's not time to do that yet. You have time.
I'm like, don't you hear 50's the new 30, bro? Come on.
Now, House of Pain being a group of white guys or a group of Irish guys, I feel like, and because now that you've informed me that y'all started with the rock vibe, you end up touring with the Ramones, Beastie Boys, Rage Against the Machine.
Took Rage on their first tour ever.
Yeah.
Same with Korn. Took them on their first tour.
Talk to me about that era and when that rap and rock was starting to come together.
Well, we were always like tried to bring a rock intensity to things, and then again, Danny being the leader as far as like knowledge of punk rock and that whole scene, he was a big fan of the sub pop, scene coming out of Seattle,
shit.
yeah. And Butch Vig was a big producer amongst those guys, and that's when he was the one who suggested the Butch Vig remix of Shamrocks and Shenanigans, I believe, which kind of bolstered that song up quite a bit and opened that whole. We went from getting offers from hip hop clubs, excuse me, to now we were getting offered rock shows, like opening with playing with other bands and festivals and kind of stuff like that. And from there, then I think after that, I did a song like right after Kurt Cobain passed away, like called Legend. That was a huge Kurt Cobain band, and that broke my heart. And I don't listen to I can't listen to the records anymore.
Man, that's deep.
But that's why I wrote that record. I was mad. I was mad at him. But not that I knew him or he owed me shit, but
right. But you knew him
pissed.
Musically, spiritually.
I was like, damn, that hurt, dude. Fuck.
Yeah, man. Kurt was so big for the culture. I remember I was completely immersed in hip hop when Teen Spirit dropped, and it rocked my world. It's just like, what is this? I need to pay attention to this. I was already kind of into like suicidal tendencies and Operation Ivy and some of that, and Dinosaur Jr. and Rollins Band and stuff like that. But what Nirvana did, it was just like visually, musically, yeah, man, it was so powerful. Judgment Night was a big deal for me when that came out, because I was like, all those bands, you had Biohazard out of Brooklyn. And I was into Biohazard, but I was into Onyx. I was, KRS-One, who would KRS-One rock with on that
let me see. There was us and Helmet. There was Cypress did too.
You and Helmet. That song is a perfect rock rap song. The one with you and Helmet.
Well, we approached it like Helmet was already working on that song when we showed up to the studio, and we were like, "Well, what do we want to do?" And I was like, and he was like, "This is something we could use," you know. And I was like, "I like it."
Y'all
like,
flipped it.
It was almost done, yeah. And we were like, "Just give it to us." And we didn't take it, but we're like, give us it, and Lethal sampled it and slowed it down.
Right,
and
we flipped it.
Yeah, and we just made it our own.
It was like chopped and screwed almost.
Basically did what that, there. I see that little internet clips where they give a record producer 3 records and he goes and makes a beat. It's kind of like the same principle. We just were like, took elements of their shit and made a beat, and then I just rapped over it.
You were also in that movie.
Well, the soundtrack doesn't have. Long story, without any bitterness, that I should have been the executive producer and all that of that soundtrack. But the guy who wound up with it was my manager.
Okay,
and he started a label with
that
them.
makes sense.
It was one of those situations. I ain't got no hate. I ain't got no bitterness about it. But like a smarter me now, that record would have made me. I'd be flying private for the rest of my life.
Right, more control.
I mean, but point is like I was in the movie and the director hated me, by the way.
Oh no!
Director hated me. Like I worked. I was in that movie so much more than I'm in it. Like there's so much of me on the cutting room floor somewhere. But he hated me. He didn't want me in the movie. I was the rap guy that was hot at the time. The producers wanted me in the movie, and they liked me. Everybody liked me, but the director.
Right.
But anyway,
you were very.
The producers were like, "What do you think of music?" And we had just done that Butch Vig remix, and I was like, "I kind of got an idea." It was like we can get a bunch of bands, and I'd been meeting a bunch of these bands already, knowing them. Yeah, I was like, just kind of put bands and rap groups in studios together and see what the fuck happens.
That was my world.
The best record on there, dude, is De La Soul and Teenage Fan Club, man, because it's the different record. It's not the it's not. It's the one that comes out of nowhere. It's like, oh shit.
Everyone was outside of their comfort zone.
Yeah,
on that record.
Yeah.
Me as a consumer, again, I was listening to a lot of hardcore and punk, listening to a lot of hip hop, and it was 2 different audiences, and that record validated me. You know, Judgment. I just, as a consumer, I was like, someone else gets it. You know what I'm saying? So I appreciate you.
Thank you, man. I mean, again,
coming up with that idea and having it taken from you.
I tell people all the time, I don't like it's like hard to take credit for things when it was like a road sign. It was like things that come down. I just keep seeing the sign that says "Do this." I don't have any genius plan of anything. Otherwise, I'd probably be a lot richer and more organized. But
But I mean,
like I just see things happening. Like I said, that Butch Vig just happened, and then I get asked this question when I'm already thinking about what would happen if you did more of this. So I and that happens, and you know, But I pay such close attention. The record gets taken out from under me.
It happened the way it's supposed to happen.
Yeah. It is what it is.
Now, House of Pain disbanded in '96. Yeah. What was the reason?
I guess it depends on who you ask in the band. For me, there was drug problems amongst the other cats, and you know, I'm not going to throw any, but it wasn't. That was 40% of it. The other 60% was I was showing up just to get the check, and
your heart wasn't in it.
I never cared about. It just started feeling like there was like doing things that I didn't want to do because that check was good. And that just, when I started, this was in a different era, everybody, when there was like actually this thing called selling out and you had a soul and you had to weigh the options, you know what I mean? Now all that's part of the game.
Out. What are you wrong with you?
That's all in this 360 deal. You sell out as soon as you sign your soul over in that. But it just felt like I wasn't enjoying it. And I thought, and honestly, I thought it was a rap. You know, I was like, I quit House of Pain at our LA release party on stage. It was a dick move. It was probably it's one of the things I regret most as I turned around.
You announced it.
It's something bad happened already during the show. I think somebody wasn't all in their right mind at the show already, and like I just turned around right before jumping around and I told the guys, enjoy it, it's the last time.
Wow.
And like I did it, and it was at the Viper Room because it was a release party. It wasn't like a big show.
Classic spot.
So I walk off the stage and the door's right there, and I walked out the door and I got in my car and I went home.
So you didn't know before that moment that you were gonna quit right then?
No, I had my brain was definitely starting to wonder what I wanted to do next. Like and this was, again, I had a run with Jump Around and 2 more albums that went gold, and I felt like, okay, how many chances you get?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then I had always played guitar. Like if you listen to the first House of Pain album, there's like some country licks and shit that we didn't sample. That's me just playing like don't. I say like every time I go to town, people start kicking. I'm playing the guitar under that. It's not hard, but I've always strummed it a little bit.
Yeah.
And I went home and I didn't know what I was doing. I actually got depressed and the doctors put me on this shit called Zoloft.
Right? Yeah, that was new back then.
It was brand new.
Yeah.
I didn't know what it was really. I didn't know it was like, that crazy shit.
I was in high school and they was giving it to kids in my high school.
For testes or what?
No, because here's the deal. No, here's the deal. Wow, this is going to get, all right, let's go. I started thinking I was going to die. All right. I was like, I'm going to die. I'm freaking out. I don't know what the fuck to do. This is in 97, probably about a little while after I quit that group. And he's like, you're having panic attacks. I'm like, yeah, I'm right. I'm panicking because I think I'm going to fucking die. It was like, and he was like, all right, here, it's just panic attacks. You're fine. He did physicals on me. They couldn't find anything wrong. I had a heart murmur, but they knew why. They were like, they weren't tripping on it. Okay, cool. And he gives me these drugs. This will help. I start taking them. And I spend the next 3-4 days as they're supposedly absorbing into my body like a zombie in front of my television, and bring it back around. Lo and behold, who calls me is Dante Ross, and he's like, and I'm talking to him for about 5 minutes when he's like, "What the fuck is wrong with you?" And I don't know, man. My doc's got me on this shit. And what does he got? It was like I told him Zoloft. He was like, "Dude," it's like, "What the fuck?" And he's like, that's like fucking lithium or crazy mind shit. I was like, okay. And then I caught myself drooling. Like,
oh, no.
It's like, oh, shit. He's like, what the fuck are you doing? And I told him, I said, I don't know. What? It's over, right? He was like, dude, get on a fucking plane. Get on a plane and come to New York. And I got on a plane. I got it and went to New York. And we started making what became Whitey Ford Sings the Blues.
Fantastic album.
No. Yeah, we started making that record. We did all the rap, all the just straight rap shit that's on that record was the first stuff done because I just thought I was making a rap record. I was going to make this rap record. Staying in his apartment. I was literally sleeping on what's known back then as the famous rapper couch. Like every fucking rapper in the fucking world, like skeeves me a little bit now to think I slept there. But like every fucking rapper in the world slept on this couch at some point. But I was strumming a guitar. I don't know if it was one he had in the house or I had one with me, but it was I was playing the chords of What It's Like, and I had like some of the structure. But it wasn't something I was even thinking about recording.
That's a great record.
It was for me. I was just fucking around, like doing something.
That's a conscious record.
He comes bouncing out of the back room of his house, like, "What the fuck is that?" And I was, "I don't know." And he's like, "We're recording it tomorrow." And I was okay, and we record What It's Like. Then we figure out we got to make a different kind of record. So I got all these rap songs and What It's Like. So I have to figure out now, am I a songwriter? And so that's where all the rest of those songs, I think, Ends came next. Ends, I think, originally was conceived as a rap song, the hook and everything. And I just kind of was strumming.
Ends is a rap phrase.
Yeah, it's Friends.
Yeah.
How many of us have them? Right. It's a tribute to that. It's like it's a what do you call it? Homage.
Right.
But ends the word too. Yes, you're right. I'm sorry. For money, it's slang. So that happened first, and then I wrote the verses that were singing kind of story verses, and then I wrote the song Today, and it started looking like, whoa, this is a weird record, and but we didn't know how to make it work sonically. The label was hating it. Tommy hated that record. They thought it was a fucking moronic move. They were like, rapper sing, what are you gonna do? Right.
I heard that did it not do well until you went on the road with it?
Oh, it took a while. I mean, I remember this is in the era of first weeks meaning a lot, and that sold 3,000 records his first week.
That's that back. Now you got a hit. Now it's like that's a hit. We did well.
Yeah.
But back then it was like, especially coming off of House of Pain.
Yeah, but the trick for that record was, and Dante kind of figured out a lot of it was the voice messages that he put on it from different cats off the machine. Some after I had my thing, but some he had actually asked.
You're talking about the heart thing.
Yeah, I had my heart. That happened right towards the end of recording.
Can you tell us about that?
So I'm saying the story's gonna like kind of go into more things. But like he got all these answering machine messages from like Sendog and Prince Paul and people, and put them in between. It was like a palate cleanser. So like going from a crazy rap song into like some melodic next thing. it gave you a second to recalibrate, and it made it work. But like I said, so then we finished up, and I think we were going to do like 2 more recording sessions, and I just was feeling tired one day. And I went upstairs, went to bed, and we were all recording in my house at that time in LA. And I woke up in the hospital, like after everything was done. Like, and basically what I found out was the heart murmur I had was caused from what's called a bicuspid aortic valve. I was born with it. They're like, your heart valve is, when it's closed, it looks like a Mercedes sign. The 3 flaps come together and the line is like that. Well, 2 of mine were fused together, so it created a gap, which that's what the murmur was, a little bit of blood leaking through. Well, at some point on that day or prior to it, the fused part tore. So now the flap that when blood pumps out of my heart and then it closes, so the blood will continue, is open. And so the blood's pumping the heart's pumping blood out, but it's falling right back in the heart, basically. So it's like you're pumping about 10% of the blood you normally would. That's why I'm tired. So I'm like, oh, yeah, I didn't know this till later, but so I was tired all day, went to bed, went to sleep. Now, Dante's partner, John Gamble, who was the other half of SD50s, was recording that day and heard me, I guess, struggling to breathe, tried to wake me up, couldn't wake me up. That was the first lucky stroke. Wow. Second lucky stroke is I was living in a place called Laurel Canyon, which is like blocks away from Cedars-Sinai, which is the best hospital in the world. So they wheel me in there, see tattoos, heart tripping. How much cocaine has he done? They're asking everybody, come on, we need to know. Heroin, cocaine, what has he done? If we give him the wrong shit. And everybody's like, he doesn't, they were just assuming. The next stroke of luck is that my heart doctor, I'll shout him out, Dr. Robert Copeland.
Shout out to Dr. Copeland.
Dr. Copeland is on the board of Cedars. So he doesn't work there, but he's part of the board. But what that means is his medical records are all accessible through their system. So after a few minutes of my name going in, my heart thing pops up and they go, oh, shit. And the whole story changes. Right. And they have to rush me in. I don't remember any of this except bits and pieces of like lights going by in hallways and the actual surgery room lights. I can remember, because they freeze you when they operate on your heart like that, basically. They bring your body temperature down so much that your blood slows. They can work on your heart. And I believe there's probably a machine oxygenating your blood. I don't know, but I would hope so. But when they freeze you, that affects your memory. Like I remember when my mother telling me afterwards, like when they were done, they were like, the surgery worked great. Now we just got to see if he's brain damaged, because that's what happens when it's possibility to happen when you do this deep of a surgery. This is like a complete reverse, like replacement of a heart valve. Like I have a titanium heart valve. I tick. If we were quiet right now and you turn up, this lav mic is going to have a all night. Just so no, that's not your equipment, all right? Okay. Because I fucked with lots of engineers behind that shit. Like what's that sound?
I want to be around for the mix of this episode.
I mean, well, you won't hear it there, but I'll just give them a sample. They'll have it.
Wow. Yeah. I can see all the heads nodding.
It's crazy because I can't hear it, but I was trying to hear it, even though I know you said later on. I'm like,
I'll let you listen. It sounds like a watch. Sounds like a tickle watch.
It's like Iron Man.
Yeah, it's a superhero. Do you feel like Dante kind of saved you from a deeper depression from telling you to get on the plane?
Absolutely. He saved my life. I mean, not that I was like suicidal or anything, but like I would have just probably quit. I wouldn't even have tried. I would just fucking been like, all right, I had enough money to last a few years. I might have just got fat in my house and not done anything until I had to.
Been that guy who used to be that guy.
The guy who used to be that guy. Yeah. Johnny Ryall.
Right. Whitey Ford, does that name come from you being a white guy, or is it a baseball thing?
Well, he's Irish too. Let's not.
Because I was a baseball guy growing up, and I idolized Whitey Ford.
I'm a Yankee.
And Brooklyn is there's a Whitey Ford like a league, I think.
It comes from a lot of things. It comes from the Wu era of everybody changing their name 5 times, having 5 different monikers. Noodles. And it was like that. The thing about that a lot of people, if they didn't understand, it was like a mask you could put on, a character you put on every time, and it helped rearrange your creativity a lot. You could start, I can refer to myself in this way. There's a whole different rhyme schemes or ideas I can use. But for me, it was just when it hit me I think it's just, I started calling it, before I didn't name the album Whitey Ford Sings the Blues right away. It was like, I said in a rap, they call me Whitey Ford, I say praise the Lord, something like that. I started referring to myself as that, like a little side moniker. And then somewhere along the line, I said the phrase that we were talking about the album. And I was like, it's Whitey Ford Sings the Blues. Not even like thinking it was going to be and then it's just, as soon as you hear it roll off the tongue, we were like, that's the fucking name of the album.
Right.
It was when, again, that's kind of the way I live. It's things just kind of, you see them, you see it in the air. It's kind of, it's, Santana used to say, we're all just antenna and the signals are floating around and you're just trying to catch the signal. Right. That's why sometimes you could write some shit and we're halfway across the world, something real similar can happen. And you'll be like, how the fuck? It's because it's all in the air. It's energy. Connected. You know what I mean? So, and there's only so many combinations.
No doubt. Yeah, I think it's very interesting that you came into my life as a rapper, as this MC, but at this point, it seems to the vast majority of your catalog is singing as a solo artist. Probably. Yeah.
Yeah, there's more albums, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and...
Well, I mean, if you're counting the Coka Nostra, yeah, it's still probably a few more.
Yeah, we gonna get into that, too. I want to talk about La Coka Nostra as well. You had a famous beef with Eminem that got squashed.
Yeah.
Right now, you actually that beef was y'all was going at each other, and then it was at the
only guys that battled on Napster. Honestly, I think.
Wow, that
Napster throwback.
Now you got a shout out from Eminem on Marshall Mathers too. Was it a relief for that to be done with?
It was never. I mean, it was never a stress factor.
Okay.
It was. The only time it became a stress factor, honestly, is like, I didn't really expect when we had our initial problem, and it was purely personal. Like I felt slighted by him at a meeting, like our first initial meeting. I tried to shake his hand and just kind of felt like I got egged, and was like, oh, okay. And then I put a little kind of what they'd call a sub tweet or something.
The first of the sub tweets,
right? We had evidence
which got them in trouble, which really wasn't fair because they rode for me when they were asked about it instead of like folding up. You know what I mean? They were my boys,
right?
But they shouldn't even have been involved in that. But just to see what if it would get noticed, and it got noticed. And the funny part was that I got called from B Real because at that moment in time they were managed by Paul Rosenberg. Cypress Hill was. So my brothers are managed by M's manager, and they asked me like, yo, Em heard this record and he's just curious if you dissed him. And I was like, so he thinks, so he's taking notice of me all of a sudden, right? So I was like, my answer literally was like, well, what if I say yeah? And B Real was like, well, he's going to come at you. I was like, yeah, okay, whatever.
Right.
You know what I mean? And then I kind of forgot about it. He didn't come back at me for a couple weeks. I kind of was like, okay, whatever. And then you couldn't put records out as quick as what it was.
Right, it had to be a whole process.
Now you can do it.
And he put it on the B side of 12. And it was a record called Quitter. And it was like skate. It was like, yeah, I'm old. I'm 3 years older than this guy.
Right.
Like that. So I laughed at that at this point. But then it was like, take a heart pill. And I was like, okay. It was nothing that was like, all right. The problem was when he bled over into that alternative market, right? And I don't even think this was purposeful by their camp at all, because during this whole beef, whatever it went on for a year or two, like when I was in New York, if I was hanging out with people and Paul Rosenberg was there and it was like, we're going somewhere else, I jumped in their van and went to I remember the first couple times going like, this is cool, right, Paul? He'd be like, hey, come on, get the fuck out of here. We know so many people in common, me and this dude.
And then Lethal was in Limp Bizkit at this time, right?
Yeah. For me, it was never about making a record to get paid off of him. That's why I never released anything. It was digital. It was on. I put it on Napster.
Right.
You know what I mean? The actual one disc record I made. The first thing that started it was like a line in a verse, So what I didn't count on, because I was like, me and this dude ain't even in the same worlds right now, so this is just fun to me.
Right.
Is that when that record bled over into like all the alternative stations.
Right.
And I don't think, again, this is where I was. I don't think they did it on purpose, but the record stations would start having their summer festivals and their Christmas shows, their big shows, and they would want Eminem to play that. All right. So I really, got the feeling quite a few times that I wasn't getting invited because they wanted them to play it, you know what I mean? And again, I don't think they were being directed by Paul or anything like, because I know all these dudes. It was just the facts and the politics of the game that we were mad at each other, and perhaps me playing that thing might have kept him from playing.
Right.
So that's the only way that thing ever really hurt me, you know, as far as that. And it wasn't, you know, I've never been the one chasing the ring like that. So it was all fun to me.
Be Real, who was also on the show, said that there was another record that never came out.
I was right when it finally was like when Be Real kind of intervened, and I tried to get on the phone with dude, honestly, and it just didn't happen. But Be Real intervened and was like, you know, here's let's approach it like this, and I was like, fine, bygones be bygones, I'm cool with that, whatever. But at that moment, it was a Whitey Fordy style kind of thing. It wasn't really hashed out. Okay. You know what I mean? It was something there like that was funny more than anything else. Right. My approach again was like trying to be funny about shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'll say in hindsight, the only thing that I would have done different is he thought in the first record that I did a little line about him on in Dilated Peoples. I say something about Haley's comment at that. I didn't know his daughter's name was Haley. Right. But he got very upset about that part. And then that got exposed that he knew so much about, or he was so upset that he thought I had said something about his daughter, that I used that in the second disc, like to kind of, not like I didn't say anything about the child, just like use the emotion of it. Like, okay, he was about to go to jail or something. And I said, I'll look in on your kid when, you know, drop, you know, like that kind of like little jab. Right. I wouldn't have done that if, like, at this age as a parent with 2 daughters. I wouldn't have done that part.
Right.
That's the only part of that side that I would say, like, I regret that part.
The
rest of it was fun.
How did it feel having beef with who was like one of the biggest musicians in the earth at the time?
Well, that happened during the course, kind of. That really, his escalation, by no means the beef being a reason for it, but he became Elvis as we were having that little tussle. You know what I mean? That's what I'm saying.
Black music so selfishly.
I didn't count on him bleeding into all markets.
Right.
Just, you know what I mean?
Right.
Just the one little one.
Right. No, that's interesting. MC8 was up here and he was talking about how the decisions he makes now as a father are different than when he was a young, hot-headed gangster rapper.
I would fucking hope so.
Yeah.
I would hope so. I mean, particularly like, you know, I always thought I'd have sons. I have 2 daughters, and I couldn't be happier about it. But it's a different game. Like, I'm a different dude.
Yeah.
Like, you can't just be rah, rah, rah.
Right.
You can't. You'll raise some really scared kids.
Right.
You know, you got to lay back.
Right.
No doubt.
Do you feel like if you would have had sons, you would have still been the same sort of laid back, or is it because you have girls that
probably
you're
a little more because they're children, but like sons, you can kind of like slap them on the ass and turn them loose on the world a little bit. Like, you know, I just don't fucking break anything. Go.
I got both. I got to figure it out. You went from playing around on guitar to putting out guitar-based albums to working with one of the guitar gods, Carlos Santana. That had to be like a dream come true.
Another thing of signs that just happened. The song "Put Your Lights On."
Great song, by the way.
Thank you. Is literally the first song I wrote when I got out of the hospital. And I didn't have. Here's the long short of the song is I didn't have health insurance at that time. Like my finances were up, and all the things I had all these bills, so I canceled health insurance for a little while. And literally, that's when my defect goes wrong, and I wind up with like good $600,000-$700,000 in bills.
Wow!
I had to sell my house in the hills.
Wow!
And this "Put Your Lights On" is me sitting in an empty house in a chair, looking out the last time I'm going to spend the night in this house, looking out the view, which saw all of LA. And the sun going down and the lights coming on. And that's, hey now, all you sinners, and I was like low. I was like, dude, what's my label? Whitey Ford wasn't out yet. Like when I wrote the song. So I'm like, my label hates my album. I just nearly damn died. And who knows if I won't be dead tomorrow. I had no clue. I was shook from the whole experience because I went to bed and woke up at Cedar Sinai.
Right.
And, So I wrote this song, and there's a referring to an angel in there that with her hand on my head. There was a nurse at the hospital I tried to go and thank that I can find that even exists, that like spent evenings with me.
That's your angel.
I'm telling you guys, I'm talking. That's where this song comes from. And Whitey Ford was already mixed and mastered. So I have this song. Now, kind of sneakily, but not in a bad way, but Dante submits it for the Santana album. I don't know this. Mm-hmm. I get booked to do Saturday Night Live, which that's a big one to me.
That's a big one.
Wow, I got to. Okay, let's go. So we're at one of the last rehearsals before show, and I go back to my room, and one of my boys comes in. And he's like, "Yo, dude," and I'm like, and he looks fucking bizarre, and he's like, "Yo, Carlos Santana's out here looking for you."
Wow.
Like, get the fuck out of here. And as I say, get the fuck out of here, Carlos Santana walks into the room, and he sits down and proceeds to like almost beg me for this song.
Wow.
It's if you read the liner notes on his album, it's the first song he picked for the album. He calls it the centerpiece of his album.
Yeah.
And I was like, and he's like sitting there begging me for it. And I'm like, okay. I'm like, and he's like, he connected with the angels and all this. And he's like, what's it? I told him what it's about. He's like,
he's that guy, right? With spiritual.
This is everything. This is everything in the universe right now. I was like, cool.
Right. Sure.
I'm dead ass. Like,
Mr. Santana.
Awesome.
Right.
This is cool. I don't know what else to say.
Yeah, the album.
I've tripped on acid watching you trip on acid.
Right.
Wow.
Right. Man, the album was so big and so.
It was wild. It was
so how many Grammys
ride.
did the album win?
Well, dude, I wrote that song outright. So he went 20 million, I think. So that's 20 million. That's like I got a double platinum record out of that album. One song. It's crazy.
Man. That's divine
writing from your
providence. Being that you went through all these label situations, started with Rhyme Syndicate, you were on Def Jam at some point, right?
Island Def Jam, but yeah, I mean, I milked the Def Jam side of it because it made me feel good.
Right. You got to say
but Leor was like the dude. That's a crazy story right there.
Let's hear that one. The Def Jam story.
Well, I get signed by oh my God, I can't remember your name, dude. He was married to the lady who I'm such a stoner, I can't remember her name. But right under Leor, the lady that ran Def Jam, Julie, I believe something. Well, her husband was an A&R guy, and I didn't have a deal or anything. And this dude, I didn't have managers or anything at this point. Like I was just kind of like, Muggs had a studio in LA, and I was just sitting in there doing shit, making what became the White Trash Beautiful record. And this guy comes and sits in my studio for like a couple weeks. Never fucking mentions a record deal or anything. Every night, fucking, he buys me dinner and we talk about music. A couple weeks he hangs out, and then he goes back to New York. Never fucking asked about a deal. I was like, oh shit, my record must suck.
Right.
I was like, whoa. Then a few days later, he comes back, and I'm so ashamed I can't remember his name, man. There's no space left in this computer, dude.
We'll get it in the comment section. Somebody will.
You'll add it.
Say it's Jeff's husband? What?
Julie Greenwald's husband?
Yes. Jeff
Greenwald?
No, he had a different name. But he had done a lot of A&R stuff. This dude was an A&R guy. Like, he knew how to play this. He didn't come and fucking try and sign me.
No, he's the guy.
He came and worked a relationship, you know what I mean? It wasn't Jeff Fenster, but I'm sorry, dude. We'll get it on air in a minute while I'm telling this story. Well, anyway, so he comes back a few days later, and he's like, all right, I want to talk to you now. And I was like, about what? He's about signing you. I was like, I want to give you a record deal. So he brought me to New York and plays Leor my record. And Leor's flipping out over this record. He's like, there's so many hits and this and that and the other. And I'm like, okay, this is cool. All right. Signs me, nice deal, good, healthy deal at the time. Like, it was like 700 change or something like that. I was like, cool. All right. Considering like Whitey Ford did this and then the next one went gold, that was a decent budget at the time.
Yeah.
And the record business was starting to do this.
Yeah.
So we took it and we made the record. And while we're making the record, I'm getting calls from anyone and everyone that knows me and Leor. And they're like, yo, this motherfucker's talking about nothing but your record. Nothing but your record. I'm getting calls. I'm like, yo, I was just at his kid's birthday party and he's playing your album for everybody at the house, dude. What's up? I'm like, and Leor was famous for, like, if he opens the checkbook, the shit's going to happen. So I'm starting to get gassed. Like, whoa, this is going to be a good year.
Right.
He's really going to put some money behind this. I think it was like maybe a month before my record was about to come out, like his buddy buys Warner Brothers. And I wake up to news, Leor Cohen is going to run Warner Brothers.
Yeah, I was signed to Warner at that time, and Leor, I had a remix for Get By with Jay-Z on it that Leor did a cease and desist because he went the Def Jam artist working with the Ruckus artist. And then I then went to Warner Brothers, and then Leor came to Warner when I was there. I was like, this fucking guy, shout out to Leor Cohen, following me around, trying to shut my career down.
Damn. He didn't win though.
Well, yeah, so I mean, I knew that tale already. That tale's been told many times. When the one staff goes out, another one comes in, and you're in the limbo. Nobody comes in and sticks their neck out for records they didn't sign. So it's just like the record did okay though, but like it just went from like, whoa, this could be interesting to like, all right,
I'm back on my own.
Yeah, but I mean, at the height of things, I don't think I'd be very happy if this was more famous than my music.
I understand.
You know what I mean? If my face was more famous than my music, I don't think
you could have a real life.
I love nothing more than being at Whole Foods buying some olives or something, and my fucking like one of my songs is playing over the intercom and nobody knows shit.
Really?
Right.
Wow.
It's awesome.
Right.
It's awesome.
Now you started Martyr Records, Martyr INC.
Inc. It's like Murder Inc.
Martyr Inc. Shortly after around this time, right?
Yeah. Whenever it became more feasible to do that than chase checks.
Right.
And I'm glad I did. My manager put me on the idea that the streaming thing was going to work out if you owned your masters, and it's starting to work out.
Starting to. Yeah.
I actually started doing, I do social stuff now. I come and do a podcast once in a while.
every once in a while, at people's party.
I do my Instagram. Instagram is what I do.
Yeah.
I got all the other stuff, but that's my team. Instagram is what I do. I do my acoustic things now, and it's starting to really, I'm seeing the difference. Like people are like getting interested. I like doing it. It's easy. I can do that in my studio.
Right.
Are you going to bleed over to TikTok?
I have an account, but I have no idea what to do with that fucking
Me neither.
thing. I have no idea what to do
I'm not
with
going
it.
to be doing that.
I just locked it down so nobody would take OG Everlast,
Right.
And it was like, and then I was like, all right, I'll see what if some way there. I mean, my manager is trying to figure out a way to maybe some clips of live stuff.
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah, I have no interest.
You can do stuff with your daughter. People love like father-daughter
I haven't
duos.
figured that out yet. My daughters don't have phones, so they're
That's
6
good.
and 10, and they don't have phones yet. And I'm gonna keep it that way as long as I can get away with it.
Let's talk about La Coka Nostra for a second.
Absolutely.
I remember, when I came in the game with nonfiction. Like when I was
shout out.
Yeah, when I was running around building my career, Ill Bill and them was running around building they thing. Talk to me about how that, and that's another thing that Danny put on the table as well, right?
Yeah.
Tell me about the origins of La Coka Nostra and what that is for the audience that doesn't know.
Well, like I said, things had split up from House of Pain a bunch of years earlier. That's probably 10 years maybe had gone by. And, we had run into each other. We'd kind of piece things back together, and we're open to hanging out, and wasn't really into the House of Pain thoughts yet, but like they were already working on La Coka Nostra, but it was different guys. Like Lethal it was Danny and Lethal, and I think Bill, or me and Bill might have joined at the same time. Like we were all out there together, and we were at Lethal's house, and he played a beat that wound up being a song called "Fuck Tony Montana," and we were just like, "Oh shit, that's crazy!" And and like Bill rapped on it, and I've got a wild hair up my ass and rapped on it, and then fucking our boy Sick Jackin out of nowhere popped up.
Shout out to Sick Jackin.
He's one
classic,
of the he's the illest dude. He's
classic LA.
And nobody can rap in Spanish
OG.
better than that dude. I'm
Spanish,
telling you right now.
he
in
raps
English,
Spanish
he's a
and
beast.
English.
In Spanish, he's a fucking
Man.
monster.
Their shows be crazy.
I mean, we did a whole record together, me and him, called War Porn Industries.
Right.
But that we couldn't release it because of sample heavy.
Divine Styler was involved in that record as well, right?
He produced the whole album.
Yeah.
And he rapped on it. Yeah, and he rhymed on a bunch of stuff too. But so this, and then Be Real showed up that night. Nobody called anybody. It's just like the motherfuckers just showed up. They heard what we were doing, and now it's wound up being one of these little posse cuts. Like we were like, and I didn't really know much about La Coka Nostra yet. But it was another thing. I heard the name, and I was like, what the fuck is that? And Danny was like, oh,
This thing I'm doing.
It was a joke. I think it started with like Slain and a couple other dudes who used to like doing a little bit of the coke.
He's a great rapper too, Slain.
Yeah, and 6 years sober now. So
Right.
if I'm going to tell this story.
Shout out to Slain.
Yeah, but like, he's very much tell you he'd fancy a nice fucking rail every now and then, So they were talking to Danny on the phone. Apparently, this is what I remember the story being told to me was, they were talking about what's going on over there. It was, oh, no, it's all good. We're like La Coka Nostra over here. And Danny was like, yeah, more like La Coka Nostra. And like it stuck, it was like, oh shit. And then Danny was always a master of the conceptualization of like the logos and stuff. And I sometimes feel like he belonged on Madison Avenue. That was his true calling. Like he could have been like a huge.
He's Don Draper out here.
He just knows how to put that kind of shit together.
Yeah.
But so like, it was a collective actually is what it was. There was a bunch of people involved. And then we're sitting there, we're listening to this song. And I think we did 2 more that night. And it was like, well, you got this. I was like, you got that thing. We could like, just put it out under that. It was like, it was MySpace days.
Yeah.
So we put it out under that and it started moving. Like the numbers, it started running up numbers. And then the logo, we started selling t-shirts and we were cleaning up. We were making bank on
It's a good name. It's a good logo. The music felt good.
T-shirts out the window. No music was sold. It was all free. All the music was free. The first like basic album of La Coka Nostra, we were just putting up songs.
It was refreshing for me, especially being a fan of the old school House of Pain thing, and this to see y'all reinvented with a new bunch of MCs and being still present in the scene, because House of Pain was a behemoth. It was so big. You to me were larger than life. And to see you be like, no, now I'm a member of this underground rap group was refreshing to me.
For me, rap for me, I'm far better when you put me in a room with like cats that like I'm like that basketball team that plays to the level of their opponent. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You put me in the room with the champs, you're gonna be like, oh shit. And like Bill and Slane lit a fire under my ass. You know, like they were like and our styles are so different because they're on that kind of really speedy syllabic
patterns, double flow, double two.
And I'm kind of more just like a slow, flowy kind of delivery. But like breaking it, it worked. It seemed, and throw a few hooks in there, and then like I said,
it was aggressive too.
Once we decided we were making an album, and it's like it kind of made itself. Bun is a good friend. He showed up. Snoop showed up. I mean, I just called the homies and like that had been listened. I didn't call any homies. I called homies that had actually said something to me about the Coka Nostra.
Right.
I mean, like, yo, that shit y'all are doing is hot. Bun. I actually brought him a hat to like a video he did early on before like we had album. He was like, yo, that Coka Nostra shit's hot. I was like, how do I get a hat? I was like, where do I send it? He's like, I'm in LA. I went and got it made at the swap meet and dropped that shit off.
That's dope. Bun is always early. He's always got his ear to the street and paying attention.
He's a good dude.
Snoop too.
A good dude.
Snoop got his ear to the street.
Yeah, Snoop always is ahead of the game. I mean, I wrote a country song and produced this country for Snoop, man. That was kind of an amazing like twist of events.
Man, you've had a storied career, bro.
I really didn't realize until this. This is like probably the most in-depth interview I've ever done.
Yeah, this is your life.
As far as like all the like chronologically talking about all the shit I've done.
Now you left, or you stopped really putting time into La Coka Nostra in 2012 with your daughter's situation.
Yeah, I mean, what happened was the guys wanted to keep making records, and I just made different. I had just finished or was finishing up making an album called Songs of the Ungrateful Living, a solo album, and the thing about I consider myself semi-retired at this point. Like I make music when I want to make it. I've put out 2 albums in the last 12 years. You know what I mean? And but I tour every year. I'm working. You know, because I can put out an album and tour for 2 years off and do shows for 3 years. I mean, I could probably not put an album ever out again and still do a relatively fair amount of shows every year.
I'm in that same boat. Like the album served the tour for me.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And at this point, for streams, like,
right? And the fans who you got the fans who you got, they come to you, and they're supportive,
So, they were itching to make the next record, and I was already struggling with my daughter. Like my daughter being born with cystic fibrosis, this was very like right then at that when she had been born, and it was like you being thrown to the wolves and thrown in the deep end at the same time. Like trying to figure out all the complexities of this disease, which we could talk about a whole nother episode if you wanted, but so it got to a point where there were feelings that waiting longer would hurt the brand because I told him it's going to be a year, maybe more, before I can really do that. And I sensed that wasn't making guys happy, so I just bowed out. Like and said they're going to take the mantle and keep going.
You, in an interview, said that when you found out about the cystic fibrosis, that you felt like you were at war with God.
Yeah.
Do you still feel like that?
No.
What was that time like, and why did you feel that way?
I was Lieutenant Dan, man. You know, it was like really. I mean, like, because there's. I became Muslim in 1996.
That was my next question.
And you know, I've always been on journeys towards what's what, if you know what I'm saying, like the greater existence, this being or energy or collective, whatever it is that stands above and beyond what we understand. So I've always been chasing that since my early days of youth, you know, since I was raised Catholic, and you do this thing called confirmation at a very young age, where it's like support. It's sort of like a bar mitzvah, but you don't get all the money and gifts. You just get you just get the Holy Spirit, supposedly.
Right.
So when you go through this whatever ceremony and you go up before the archbishop or whoever and he anoints you with this shit, you're supposed to become filled with this Holy Spirit. And that I was gassed, like, yeah, that's gonna fucking happen to me, you know, at 14, and it didn't happen. So that day I knew coming back, sitting down, and I see all the kids acting like, you know, I didn't know they were pretending at the time.
Right.
For a long time I was like, I'm evil. I must be not worthy. You know what I mean? Not necessarily evil like that. Let's just say like, wow, what
not good enough.
Am I not doing right? And then as I learned, I moved in when I told this is good. This is so long. When I first got a record deal with Ice-T, and I told my mom and dad I was going to make rap records and go on tour to Europe instead of attending my senior year of high school, I was told to get the fuck out of the house. Like, yo, okay, you're going to go pay your own bills then. I was like,
right.
So I got thrown out on the street when I wound up living in what was going to be a studio in the back of a guy named Bilal Bashir's house, who was producing Divine Styler, and he produced my first album with Ice-T. But they never finished it, and it became called The Hut. It's famous in the Valley in LA. Anybody hip hop in that era came and passed through and touched vibes on The Hut. Dropped a lot of acid there, all kinds of shit. I also, the family in the house was Muslim, so I would have. They never approached me. They never tried to tell me nothing. But I would pick up a tape once in a while and listen to a tape or a lecture of, Warthin Muhammad.
So it's like this is like he left. He was in the nation.
He had started the American Muslim Society at this point. And but it wasn't even about that. It was just like the common sense shit. And I don't want to go into all that because I don't like saying things that one religion is better than another. And I wouldn't call myself a practicing Muslim at this moment, though. If I were to get down and need to feel like I'm pray, that's how I'd pray.
Right.
But I don't adhere to any kind of organized
religion
functions of religion,
right.
Other than connecting with what I got to connect with. But just a lot of magic was taken out of things that I was understanding and made me understand them in ways that I could wrap my head around them more and understand like just the reality of things. And so like I said, I became Muslim in 96 and I actually credit the thinking and the center it brought me for my surviving what happened to me. You know what I mean? That I had this, I've never been a zealot. I've never been, I just kind of was like, I've always been looking to be a decent human being. Golden rule is all that's golden really rule. Number one. You know what I mean? That's really number one thing. Do unto others.
Right.
And that's kind of.
That's really the blueprint right there.
And how you get there is whatever it is. If you get there, that's fine with me.
Right.
You know what I mean? If it's,
compassion.
If Bert and Ernie are your saviors, go for it. You know what I mean? That's cool. If it gets you to do unto others, I'm good with you.
Word up.
So I don't like talking about what I heard or how it clicked for me as a Christian at that moment, because there's plenty of Christians that get where to do unto others,
right.
And I'm not trying to diminish that. But for me, I got in this zone, and for quite a few years, I was heavy hard on the deen, which is actively practicing, and and then I fell off a little bit, but then got married and all this stuff, and started thinking again of organized religion differently, but never the personal whatever don't assume to know what it is I'm dealing with, but there's something that I'm connected to with it. There's a connection. So I'm trying to just focus on that. And, when you are having kids, there's only one thing you pray for when you're having kids. There's only one thing. You don't pray for anything funny. You pray for just give me a healthy kid.
Yeah.
Just give me a healthy kid. So when my daughter was born and we were hit with this really crazy news, like you got to remember, like when I was told by the doctors, I remember like as soon as getting off the phone with them, I think that it was like, well, she was born in 2009. So I got on and whatever it was, WebMD or whatever, and I looked it up because I had heard the term before, but I wasn't familiar with. And the first thing it tells me is that life expectancy is 15. And I'm like, oh my God, how am I going to tell my wife this? You know what I mean? And granted, at that moment, the info was a little dated.
Yeah.
And since it's the median age is, I believe, pushing 40 now.
Okay.
Because a lot of shit has been done in the last few years. But at that moment, and just like having to tell my wife, have like this string of just dark fucking things just had me going like, all right, then, well, fuck you too.
Right. Right.
And I was like that for maybe the first 5-6 years of her life. Not like raging, just like, okay, fuck you too. You ain't getting as much energy from me. You ain't getting as much time from me. You definitely ain't getting them rockers.
Right.
Word
up.
And it just therapy. That's all I can say. I mean, the anger was building. Actually, I wasn't raging, but the anger was building, and germs are a big deal with my daughter. The immune system is compromised. So something happened at the CF clinic one day when I was living out in down south. Loma Linda was the hospital. Shout out, they're a great hospital. But something happened where I got angry with somebody, and one of the staff who didn't know me well didn't understand, like, tattoos this, and I was a little, They called security. Which happened to be the police, I guess, because it was like a hospital. They just called, the police were there. They came to the door of my daughter's exam room. And I opened it, and the police were like, yeah, can we talk to you? And I was like, what about? You know what I mean? They're like, yeah, well, they say you threatened somebody. I was like, no, I didn't threaten anybody. Now, what happened was at the time, and they have a policy, and they followed their policy. But what happened was like, there's a policy at these where somebody's supposed to wear a mask all the time. Because these children are compromised, especially the children, so they don't pass things between each other. So I saw a child without a mask. I said something to the mother, like, put a mask on. And then one of the staff members said something to me, and I was like, yeah, but that shit that makes you mad enough to kill somebody. That's what I said, literally. All right. Now, and they told me when they heard that word kill somebody, they had to do that. I understand their policy. Right. It's a little crazy when you put context into play, but I understand what happened. So the cops come in. Now I'm like, yeah, we could talk, but you can't come in the room. It's my daughter's in here, and I don't know what germ is on you, dude. You know what I mean? And it's a white guy and a black guy behind him. And this dude's like, yo. And he's like, well, I'm going to come in the room. And I was like, fat chance. I was like, you're not coming in this room. And I go to shut the door, and he puts his boot in there, and I heel his boot out. And he's like, yo, you're going to jail. And I come outside, and I shut the door, and I'm like, well, take me to jail then. I said, it's going to be fun. I'm not in my right mind. Right. I'm not fucking a tough guy.
You're in protective
at this point,
mode.
Give a beating, take a beating. It's something.
Yeah.
I'll feel something different than what I'm feeling now. It's kind of that situation. All of a sudden, the guy in back steps in front, and he's like, hold up. The brother steps in front and says, where are you from? I said, I'm from fucking LA, homie. What? He's like, no. He's like, I hear something else. I was like, my mom's from Brooklyn. I was like, I was born in Long Island, but I'm from LA, dude. I was like, I was raised here. He's like, okay. He's like, I understand. He's like, you got that,
right.
Mom. He's like, let's talk. He's like, I understand you, your daughter, this, that. We speak. He talks it all out. Like I go back in my room.
A human interaction.
Yeah. And that's great, but I'm driving home, and now I'm like, man, I could have just, in front of my daughter, beat the shit out of a cop or gotten the shit beaten out of me and gone to jail either way without even thinking, because I just, that's when I started therapy. And therapy changed everything. Therapy, makes you own your shit if you do it right. and you get the right dude. I had tried therapy and shit before with other dudes, but they'd never. You got to find the right one.
Wasn't the right time, I think.
Yeah, probably I too.
You've been very public about sharing what your daughter's going through on social media. Do you feel like that's also a form of therapy? Do you do it to help others or help yourself?
That's her doing. She wanted that. Like, we never posted a picture of her, like, and talked about it until she, like, when she was very young when she decided she knew mommy and daddy were on Instagram doing our things. Daddy probably a little more she understood was, as she understood I was a little different and had a little more reach or whatever than the average, dad, that she was like, I want to start an Instagram. And we asked her why. And she said, I want to let people see. Like, she has an Instagram. It's Layla Beauty. Layla like Layla Ali, Laila. Layla Beauty 09. But you get screened by the wife. It's private. If you don't look like a creep, and she'll let you in and watch. But she'll post stuff. I don't think she's been doing much lately, but she was up for a while about that life. Every time she went to the clinic or this, and not just the negative side, the good sides, but. Anything you see me post of her, it's been run by her. She's been asked, "Can I post this?" I'm never gonna have her grow up and be like, "Dad, no, that ain't right."
I think it's very positive and therapeutic and important that y'all do that and share your story.
Well, I know it is because people reach out all the time. And,
I can imagine.
My wife is good. She all the time is getting hit up by like other mothers with, especially cystic fibrosis mothers, and that because it's a very complex disease. I mean, like this. There's water right there. There's a thing in here called Pseudomonas. It's harmless to you. It's harmless to me. It can culture in my daughter's lungs. You know what I mean?
Now
it's like, and that's water. That's everywhere on Earth. It can be a droplet here. If she aerosolizes it somehow, it can wind up in her lungs and culture. And there's tons of that shit that you can't and feeding and digest. It's so complex, the disease, that it's heavy, and that's another reason it's heavy. I watch my wife carry a load while I'm out earning money. That's why there was a lot of fuck you.
Right.
But with the therapy, I came to just back around where it's like, it ain't your fault. It ain't nobody's fault.
Can you describe the process of how you went about learning to be your daughter's caretaker?
Yeah, my wife is awesome. She learned everything and showed it to me step by step. She dove in and there's, you wake up in the morning, she has to, do treatments twice a day with what's called the vest, but it's like a compressor that it'll shake you numb. When I used to hold her as a baby doing it, I'd be numb afterwards. It's that violent because she doesn't really have a ton of this yet. But the thing is, a lot of mucus builds up in their lungs, and it's to shake it loose so they'll cough it out. That's small. That's just tip of the iceberg. She has feeding tubes because they don't digest fats properly, so it's hard to get nutrition in them. They also deplete salt crazy fast, so you got to keep them, hydrated and whereas you wouldn't be giving a kid a ton of salt. Layla gets, the extra salt. There's so many little things that, again, the house has to be kept clean. This whole coronavirus shit. I've been living the coronavirus life for fucking 10 years. I get on every plane I ever get on for the last 10 years and wear masks. And I have an entire bag of alcohol, sanitary wipes. They have the airplane pilots or people have been looking at me like I'm nuts for years.
Yeah, you and me spoke about this a little bit when you were trying to schedule this visit. You brought up the mucus thing. Planet Asia was on this show talking about how we don't pay enough attention to the problems that the mucus causes.
Oh, like just in general?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, there's lots of things you can do dietarily to avoid mucus, and but it's a whole different ball. It's a whole different ball game because of the salt depletion in the cells. In CF, the mucus can become cement-like. So and that'll sit in the bottom of the lungs and it just trap infection and colonize infection. It's becomes like a cave system for. They have to do what's called Bronx, where they literally go in there and scrape it out. It's crazy. There's a lot of wild shit. But my daughter, by the way, though, is doing amazing right now. They just approved an amazing treatment for CF. I think it's called Trifacta. Just got approval, and she'll be eligible for that soon. And You know, there's a lot of, like I said, from the time I found out about it, it went from 20 to, it's doubled. It's basically to 40 in the last 10 years.
That's good news.
And they have someone that lived till 76 before dying from cystic fibrosis. And also, I was at an open mic and it was a comedian that was there and she suffers from it. And she, you know, she was doing open mic. She was, you know, making light of her situation. But, you know, it's very encouraging to know that you can live a full life.
There was one of them singing shows where there was a guy on it, like a singer, like a country style singer on one of the competition shows that had CF. I don't know what happened. I don't know what happened with that. But yeah, I mean, it's one of the things. It's like I came to the conclusion that this is all what it's supposed to be, and she's with me because she's supposed to be with me. So
that's right.
So it became, instead of fuck you, it became thank you.
That's beautiful.
You know what I mean?
We could give it up for that. Word up.
It made me cry.
It's all right. You can let them out.
We are honored for you to share your story with us, and I know you don't. I know you have been sharing on Instagram, but for you to come here and share with us, it means the world to us, and we really appreciate
the invite, man.
No doubt. Let's talk about Whitey Ford's House of Pain for a second.
Cool.
Because you, that's you taking these two worlds and bringing them together. And I really, really, really enjoyed this album, particularly the song, The Culling. You know, I really like that song. Yeah. I feel like that song, I've heard you speak about this album. You feel like it's one of your best pieces of work. Yeah, I do. And you feel like it you know, everybody says that about you say it about every new album, right? I really look at it and I feel lyrically, I feel in a lot of ways that musically, it's exactly what I called it though. It's like Whitey Ford sings the blues and like House of Pain. That's that record, The Culling though, like even with the Muslim thing, like there's Islamic references on it. Oh, for sure. There's movie references on it. You talk about syndication soldier on that song. It's like that record to me encapsulates everything about you in the best way possible. That song. Yeah, that was a hard one. That's a hard one to perform though. There's not one breath in that song. There's a lot of bars in that song. Yeah, I mean it's one of my more proud like rap moments. Yeah, you know what I mean? Like just because like when I look at it and see not hidden meaning and everything, but like there's two ways I do things when I write, and I write all in my head. There's either like I'm trying to tell you something, I have the idea already, or it's stream of consciousness. Mm-hmm. That's a stream of consciousness. Each line led me into the next line. Like what would come after that, you know? Yeah, it's almost like word association. Chemtrail, apocalyptic, hieroglyph, try to riff, find a spliff, light it up, smoke it. You know, it's just like if you really just slow it down, you find it. It's just a step by step. It's like Billie Jean with the steps and that's the dance he's doing. You know? But it's about your life. It's stream of consciousness. It's word association. But it's about all the things that make up who you are. Yeah, that's what I mean. When you take the step back from the stream of consciousness, be like, oh, it actually says a lot. Like it's not just random thoughts. Like I have a song in the same vein called Black Jesus. That's just like pop culture references and this and all. White Devil, Black Jesus. That was because of Ghostface. Like I just wrote that song literally because he had the song Black Jesus, and I was like, what would happen if a white guy wrote a song called Black Jesus? And I just started writing. They call me White Devil, Black Jesus, and then just from there, that's what happened. You spazzed on that record. But, you talk on the Whitey Ford House of Pain record. You referenced Tom Petty twice. Kind of. The Waiting is kind of like that. The one I said, the waiting is the hard part. Definitely. That's a great lyric too. And then the second one would be more of a musical one. There's a unless you're thinking about something else that I didn't catch. It's just a bridge of just dum, 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 you know, kind of a Tom Petty bridge. I knew about the first one, but the second one I read about, I didn't quite catch it on the record. Right. It's just a bounce. It's not like lyrical or anything. It's just like, you know, we're like, what do we do for this bridge? And then we were like, fucking somebody that was my keyboard player, or we just let's Tom Petty that shit. And it works. Let's go. We lost a great one with Tom Petty. My good friend Dave New York passed away. You know Dave, right? He passed away last summer, but he was hanging out with Tom Petty a lot. So it's like Dave and Tom Petty kind of went together, you know? But Tom Petty was just such a huge influence. I have a question about something you said about Donald Trump. I try to leave that dude's name out of my mouth, but okay, let's go. Okay, you and you said that in the interview. You made it clear in the interview I read to say that you have your criticism of Trump, but you don't let it affect how you live your life. Don't let it change.
Well, okay.
That's what you said. But you said he was elected by scared ass white people, and you said he's probably going to be elected again.
I think I usually, when I say that, I qualify it with I pray I'm wrong.
Please.
And I could be maybe honestly, as much as I think Bernie was the best human being running, I think he gets scraped in a general election. So
Elizabeth Warren just dropped out today.
Yes.
That might help. You know what I mean? But I just think it's, the way they frame things. I'm so sick of the fucking, the world of, the algorithm has just got everybody, dude. And I don't know, that's a vague way of saying it, but like, it's just like the whole no truth thing, all that. White people are really scared. I don't understand why, and I do understand why. They don't spend their time around enough. It's like we're talking about certain white people.
Yeah.
Pockets of them. Big
You got to say that because white people sometimes get very offended.
Yeah, I'm talking about big pockets of these certain white people.
Right.
You know what I mean? That just, in a lot of ways, in a lot of ways, they just don't even know any better. In these, I'm not belittling or anything. I'm just saying, like, they're scared. They're being told and fed constantly that caravans of fucking Latinos are coming and the black man wants to kill them. It's like, and I've just spent. I was at World on Wheels like in the fucking 80s when it was like schoolyard Crips killing Grape Streets in the. It's just. I've never personally been treated badly. You know what I mean? I've had a random dude here there, but like collectively, I've never felt unwelcome at any event, mosque I've been to, anywhere, any family's home. Never have I walked into a situation where I was like among nothing but like black folk and been anything but welcomed in and told like, hey, you're welcome here. Come on in and relax. You know what I mean? Again, I've had random individuals fucking have problems with me.
Yeah, people be like, this happened to me because I'm white. It's like, no, that happened to you because you're a mark.
You're an asshole.
For a long time, people wouldn't understand when I'm trying to tell them the story and I try to equate it. It was like, yeah, but imagine. I mean, there was a time when I didn't know any black people way back in my youth, but but I remember once in a while a black person coming around and how they must have felt
every day.
And I don't remember everybody in our fucking neighborhood jumping up and saying, hey, come on in, you're welcome.
Right,
you know
that definitely happened.
So, I mean, I can weigh both those experiences and understand that, you know what I mean? The lie is heavy out there, man. The bigger the lie, the more people believe it. Everybody believes it. So how big is the lie?
It's a narrative that is changing, though. And that's one of the things I love about social media because it shows black people in different aspects where it's not like just gang or just killing people. Like you see black people doing random quote unquote white people things like eating hummus and stuff like that. So,
hummus is not white people stuff.
Okay, it's not. They made it white people though.
They did that with yoga and a bunch of other things. That is not white people.
You almost got a spit take on that one, dog. Like eat hummus.
I mean, I know where hummus originated from, but they make it a white people thing.
Right. Okay. They do. Cultural appropriation is very real.
Yeah.
I didn't know we took hummus, man.
Y'all took hummus.
Yeah, y'all took hummus.
Sorry. Taking it back to like just what we were just talking about, it's like that's kind of where just even the idea of House of Pain comes from was like, yo, I'm proud of who I am, what I am, where I come from. You know what I mean? That doesn't mean like anything else is threatening that. And that's the narrative that these certain people are taught. First of all, what they're being taught is something as a culture that isn't a culture. We already touched on that. So get in touch more with your actual culture, and that void might fill up with stuff.
Right, and when you get in touch with your actual culture, that makes you have respect for other cultures. Because when you see how much you love and appreciate your culture, you can understand how somebody else could appreciate their culture. Instead of this like idea that we were grown up with, this idea of this melting pot, where a melting pot, all the culture dissolves and becomes some bland culture with no seasoning, no spice. I'd rather have like a stew where everyone's culture is represented. You taste every flavor. You see everything.
Yeah.
Marinated together.
Absolutely. Definitely.
Absolutely. I'm high.
Yeah. That's good. That's good. That's
Live
good.
your life.
Now that you high, let's talk about some high shit. You also described America as a corporation. I think that's very apt, especially with a president like Donald Trump.
Yeah, I mean, it just is. It's been. It's owned. I don't know how factual this is. It's from like my Behold the Pale Horse days, but doesn't your birth
Shout out to William
certificate
Cooper
have the words "property of the United States of America" on it? You're owned. Like we're all owned. Like technically, you can call that a contract.
Wow.
Your birth certificate. If you wanted to get real deep. It just behaves like a corporation. I mean, you've seen the documentary, The Corporation, where they take the corporation and compare it psychologically to a human. And by the end, spoiler alert, a corporation is basically a psychopath.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. If a corporation is a human being, which the court said it was.
Well, yeah, courts call it. That's why we all incorporate ourselves. So, you could be saved of, my life's over here. You can sue that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. The psychopath over there.
Yes.
Him over there.
Sue the psychopath.
Point at me.
You have been you've experienced every part of the music business, from independent to not having success to having huge successes. What advice can you give for someone coming into the music business, having to look at contracts and deal with lawyers and stuff like that, but still wants to maintain their presence as a pure artist?
Well, now that's not even necessary, is it? Like, I mean, at least the contract and doing business with like a corporate entity. I don't think anybody should even attempt to do that until it's so much in your favor. It's like they gotta be coming banging on your door. You know what I mean? Don't just you can't do it yourself. It's free. Put it on Spotify. See what the fuck happens. Or SoundCloud. Or see what the fuck happens. You know what I mean? It's not that hard. You know what I mean? But I think the more you can get done on your own, the better off you are. All the legends sold them out of their trunk first, man.
That's right.
You know what I mean?
Especially on the West Coast.
Yeah, that's an old thing. Do it yourself, man. I would say, be like E40. That dude does it all. I love following
Word
that
up
guy.
for Sugardale.
Yeah, and he was independent early,
Word up.
And he's probably responsible for more slang, especially West Coast slang, than any other single individual I can even imagine.
That's right. 40, you got an open invite on the show.
Oh,
Yes.
yeah, he needs to come down.
Are you familiar with Meg Thee Stallion?
As familiar as I can be by just what I see on my Instagram. I'm not really hip to a lot of the music.
Do you have an opinion on what she's going through with her contract right now?
I did read something about it. If it's as outrageous as what I read, then she's gonna win. She'll be all right if she got a good lawyer. That's like inhuman. Some of that shit I saw, like, she gets no money, or like 60% of everything goes to no. That's,
Did you see?
I don't know. I'd be mad at who told her to sign that deal. Is what I'd be mad at.
I saw James Prince talking about it. I guess he's involved with the people who gave her a deal. He was telling their side of the story on his Instagram.
There's always a side of the story.
Yeah, well, there's always a side.
That's why I said if what I read is true.
Right, right.
Their stance was, as an independent label, that they pretty much deal with all the same risks that the artist is dealing with as well. So once these artists are getting big, then they shouldn't just try and release themselves, separate themselves.
There's that too.
From them.
I mean, there's also, we don't know how much those dudes spent to get her where she's at. So, I mean, that's why I'm saying if what I read is that little blurb I read some real slave contract type stuff that was like, wow, that's awful. How do you pay your bills? But if they spent $10 million to get her where she is, I mean, then they deserve their $10 million back at minimum. So there's, it's a business. It's a ruthless, dirty, awful, scummy business. That's why I don't deal in it.
Yeah.
I do my thing, and I don't have to. I don't go to Hollywood much, except to pick up a pair of sneakers here and there.
Now you said that you are consider yourself retired, but
semi
because you retired from the business.
Yeah.
But I know there's another record. There's got to be another record.
The funny thing is, I think maybe there's two.
Okay, tell me about these records.
I think there's a rap record and another songwriting record.
Okay.
And I think I'm ready to hang it up as far as I'm going to do the Bill Withers thing from there on out and just put them in a drawer. Keep recording, making songs, whatever, put them in a drawer. Leave something for the babies.
Well, we had Still Bill. Now we got Still Everlast. Who's never still, but he's still here. Ladies and gentlemen, give it up for the OG Everlast and the place to be. Woo!
Yay, yay!
Thank you.
That was fun, man. That was fun.